Chapter 1941. Six Desires Palace. As soon as Pantheon died, the flame behemoth tacitly carried Zhuowen on its back and disappeared from the sight of the countless cultivators on Long River Star. True God Pan of the Gold Sun Galaxy was killed just like that? The entire Long River Star was terrifyingly silent. However, the silence only lasted for a moment. Then, like a volcano erupting, it surged out and spread across the entire Long River Star. The result of the battle between a true god and a late divine god was as they had expected. However, the person who was defeated was out of their expectation. Pantheon, who was a true god, was killed by a late divine god youth in an instant. This scene would be imprinted in the memory of all the cultivators on the Long River Star. Chi-Chi and the other four were frozen on the spot. Their hearts were beating fast. Pantheon's strength was not weaker than any of the five of them, but in the hands of the young man who only had the aura of a late god, he had actually been killed in a few exchanges. It was simply too unbelievable. This person's back is so familiar. I feel like I've seen him somewhere before. Chi-Chi murmured with a complicated look. The flaming beast was extremely fast. It was even faster than most astrolabes. In less than half a day, Zhuowen's soul consciousness had already seen the outline of the heavenly armor star in the distance. Zhuowen sat on the flaming beast and released the blood immortal. Xiaohei had already brought the thunder fire sword into Devourer's space. She was soaking in the pool of fire spirit juice. If there was nothing urgent, Xiaohei would not have come out. At this moment, the blood immortal came out and looked around. She was confused when she found that she was in a starry sky. Since Zhuowen had put her in the spiritual ring had been cut off from the outside world. Therefore, she did not know what had happened after leaving the starry sky. However, the blood immortal soon found that the surrounding temperature was extremely hot. The heat was not only on her body but also on her soul. Only now did the blood immortal notice that under his feet, there was a giant beast that was burning with flames all over its body. And this giant beast's aura was so strong that it made his heart beat faster. It was too terrifying. This was definitely a monster that was far more powerful than him. Master, where are we now? Seeing that he and Zhuowen were standing on the fire beast, the blood immortal knew that this fire beast was probably Zhuowen's new mount. To be able to tame such a terrifying mount, it was obvious that Zhuowen's strength had reached an unfathomable level. Therefore, he spoke very carefully. Zhuowen glanced at the blood immortal and said, "Blood immortal, I have promised to set you free a long time ago. It has dragged on for so long. It is time to fulfill my promise." The blood immortal's heart skipped a beat. She immediately knew that Zhuowen was going to get rid of her. Plop. Without hesitation, the blood immortal knelt down on the ground and cried out in tears, "Master! Little blood disciple has been with Master for so long. He can't leave Master. You can't abandon little blood disciple. Little blood disciple is only a demigod. He's just cannon fodder outside. Although little blood disciple is not strong enough, he has done a lot of things for Master, especially at critical moments. Little blood disciple has never screwed up. Master, little blood disciple is loyal. Please don't chase me away." As she spoke, the blood immortal had already come to Zhuowen's feet and hugged his right leg. Her voice was filled with sorrow, like an abandoned woman. Zhuowen frowned slightly. Although he didn't like Blood Immortal's personality, Blood Immortal did help him a lot when he was on the verge of death. It was also because of this that Zhuowen didn't kill the Blood Immortal when she tried to bite him several times. "You also know that you are not strong enough. You will only be a burden if you stay with me. Don't worry. I have 2 spirit congealing pills here. They can help you reach soul formation. Also, I will give you a lot of God stones. It will be enough for you to live in the Long River system." After Zhuowen spoke, he took out an astrolabe and planned to give it to the blood immortal. Unfortunately, the blood immortal hugged him even tighter. She said quickly, "Master, are you really not worried about letting me go? You know that I know Devourer's secret." Bang! A terrifying aura suddenly burst out. The blood immortal let out a muffled groan as she flew backward and landed heavily on the ground. At this moment, Zhuowen's face looked terrible. Although he thought that the secret of Devour's possession was well hidden, he didn't expect the Blood Immortal to have guessed it. The Blood Immortal was frightened. She just blurted it out to test Zhuowen's reaction. She didn't expect Zhuowen to have such a big reaction. She immediately knew that Devour's disappearance had something to do with Zhuowen. The infant Devour might have been subdued by Zhuowen. As for the possession, she had never thought about it. After all, it was too difficult. If Zhuowen hadn't relied on the strength of his soul, the celestial star meditation diagram, and the formless all-life, it would have been a fool's dream to try to possess the body of an infant. Even so, the process of his possession was extremely thrilling. "Master, don't worry. I won't tell anyone. As long as you don't let me go, I will keep this secret." Seeing Zhuowen's expression, the Blood Immortal knew that Devour had been subdued by Zhuowen. The reason why she didn't want to leave Zhuowen was because of Devour. The infant Devour's blood power was too strong. If she cultivated inside Devour's body, her cultivation speed would be countless times faster. However, Zhuowen could tell from the mysterious black-robed person's graceful figure that this person should be a woman. Moreover, Zhuowen felt that this black-robed person gave him an extremely strong sense of danger. Even though Zhuowen had many trump cards, this sense of danger rose in his heart for no reason. Obviously, the black-robed person in front of him was very strong. It was even beyond Zhuowen's imagination. This person was not a true peak true god expert, but a powerful void sky almighty. Thinking of this, Zhuowen was a little shocked. He was very confused about the origin of this black-robed person. How could such a terrifying expert suddenly appear in such a remote and desolate place like the Long River Galaxy? Moyan Wushang also saw Zhuowen, who was riding on the flame beast. Her beautiful eyes suddenly revealed a look of surprise. The mysterious black-robed person looked at Zhuowen indifferently. Then she said to Moyan Wushang, "Don't waste too much time. Because you want to wait for this man, I have deliberately delayed a lot of time. I hope you can do as you say this time." Moyan Wushang nodded slightly. Then, she swept in front of Zhuowen. Her pair of autumn eyes stared at Zhuowen's face. It was as if she wanted to imprint Zhuowen's appearance into her memory. "Wushang, who is she?" Zhuowen frowned and asked. Moyan Wushang shook her head slightly and said, "She is not an enemy. Don't be impulsive. The reason why I waited on the heavenly armor planet was actually to say goodbye to you." "Goodbye? Wushang, what do you mean?" Zhuowen was a little panicked. He knew that Moyan Wushang was going to leave, but he did not know why. But when he thought of her leaving, Zhuowen felt a little empty in his heart. Although Moyan Wushang's talent is not high, her understanding of music is the best I have ever seen. If she were to stay here, it would be a waste of her talent in music. You must have heard the trace of Taoist rhyme from Wushang's music. I know you have Taoist rhyme, but you don't know that Taoist rhyme is even rarer than your Taoist rhyme. Moreover, her music is even rarer. If such a monstrous talent doesn't enter the Six Desires Palace, it would be a waste. Chapter 1942. A Phoenix Seeking a Phoenix, Six Desires Palace. Yun was shocked. He naturally knew about the Six Desires Palace. It was a force established by the Master of the Six Desires Heaven. It was the most powerful and terrifying force in the Six Desires Heaven. It dominated all the forces in the Six Desires Heaven. Its status was similar to the Hall of Virtue in the Huaxia Heavenly Region. However, the Six Desires Palace's restrictions were much stronger than the Huaxia Heavenly Regions. It was not as casual and natural as the Taiching Palace. When he was in the Taiching Celestial Realms Hidden Scriptures Pavilion, he learned a lot about the Eight Heavens. Moreover, the Six Desires Heaven happened to be one of the strongest heavens in the Eight Heavens. Naturally, he paid attention to the Six Desires Palace. The Six Desires Palace was made up of female cultivators. Most of their attacks were based on music. All kinds of music instruments could be used by the disciples of the Six Desires Palace to kill. Although Moyan Wushang's cultivation was low, the rhythm he had comprehended was indeed extraordinary. No wonder the black-robed man had taken a fancy to him. Although logic told Zhuowen that it was indeed the best choice for Moyan Wushang to go to the Six Desires Palace, Zhuowen was still worried. "Wushang, is this your own decision and not forced by others?" The black-robed man sneered. Since you know about the Six Desires Palace, you should know that there are many cultivators in the 8 heavens who want to join the Six Desires Palace but can't. As for forcing you to do something so despicable, I won't do it. Moyen Wushang nodded. Then he avoided Zhuowen's gaze and said, Tian, I'm willing. After saying this, Moyen Wushang suddenly looked at Zhuowen with a serious expression and said, I'm too weak, I can't do anything for you and elder sister Qin Shui. I can't even help you with anything. I hate being this weak and I want to become stronger. I don't want the gap between us to become bigger and bigger. Zhuowen silently looked at the serious Moyen Wushang in front of him. He sighed in his heart. Although Moyen Wushang said that he wanted to become stronger, he was actually running away from his feelings for Mu Qinshui. Moyen Wushang did like Zhuowen, and he liked him a lot. However, she could see that Zhuowen had always been conflicted. She could see that Zhuowen loved Mu Qinshui very much. Moyen Wushang. Moyen Wushang. Moyen Wushang had done many things that had stimulated Zhuowen's heart. And Moyen Wushang. Moyen Wushang's is. Wushang Wushang Wushang? Wushang Moyen Wushang. Moyen Wushang was. Was Wushang World Wushang and Wushang Wushang Time Studio was? And Studio Wushang was studio. She also knew that Zhuowen went to the Brahma domain to find the sun and moon grass that could balance the yin and yang of Mu Qinshui's soul. Once he found it, Mu Qinshui would wake up again. Therefore, Moyen Wushang chose to run away in order not to make things difficult for Zhuowen. She didn't want Zhuowen to be conflicted. Yes, she was running away. Although she wanted to stay by Zhuowen's side, she didn't want the person she liked to be conflicted because of her. Wushang, since it's your decision, I will respect it. However, after I deal with the matters at hand, I will go to the Six Desires Palace to find you. No matter what, I think we should face it. Whether it's you or me, it's the same, Tuan said softly. Moyen Wushang was startled and her eyes turned red. She knew that Zhuowen's words were very plain. However, he had already made a promise to her. In other words, he had already started to accept her. All of this had to wait until Mu Qinshui woke up. Zhuowen took out the green pearl and handed it to Moyen Wushang. He said, Wushang, this is a low-grade true divine weapon. It should be of great help to you. Brother Zhu, I like you. I have always liked you. Thank you for your promise. I will wait for you in the Six Desires Palace. I know you will definitely come. I am very happy now. Moyen Wushang's tears flowed down. She also threw herself into Zhuowen's arms. She was like an injured kitten, her delicate body twitching. Zhuowen gently stroked Moyen Wushang's back. A trace of pity rose in his heart. Moyen Wushang had done too much for him. He wasn't a cold-hearted person. He had seen what Moyen Wushang had done. Moreover, Moyen Wushang had done things for him without asking for anything in return. She had always been willing to be a green leaf, silently contributing for him. Zhuowen didn't want to let down such a woman. He didn't want her to suffer any harm because Moyen Wushang had invisibly entered his heart. Wushang, Zhuowen suddenly felt guilty. Whether it was Mu Qinshui or Moyen Wushang, they had done a lot for him. However, Zhuowen had not been able to repay their efforts. Wushang, we should go. The black-robed person looked at this scene. Her heart seemed to be moved. Her voice also became much softer. Give me time for a song. Moyen Wushang and Zhuowen separated. Then she sat cross-legged in the void. She took down the zither on her back. Her slender jade-like hands began to strum and jump between the strings. The pleasant sound of the zither continued to reverberate. The black-robed person opened her mouth but didn't say anything. She just stood silently to the side and waited. Zhuowen quietly looked at Moyen Wushang. At this moment, he could clearly feel the powerful rhythm that was constantly touching the will in his body. At this moment, Moyen Wushang was playing a solo for him. The rhythm that he had comprehended was all contained in this song. Zhuowen simply released the 4th level of the will in his body. The purple will was like a purple snake that constantly swam around Zhuowen's body. It made Zhuowen's whole body filled with a mysterious color. The sound of the zither floated. The rhythm was faint. The purple will was misty. It was like water and milk. At this moment, the will on Zhuowen's body seemed to have resonated with the rhythm of Moyen Wushang's music. They were constantly intertwining. And in this intertwining, The power of the rhythm and the will was expanding. It was as if the two were complementing each other. The rhythm and the will are actually complementing each other and expanding. The black-robed person's pupils shrank. He couldn't help but murmur in a low voice. The song ended and the crowd dispersed. Zhuan slowly opened his eyes. Moyan Wushang and the black-robed person had already left. However, his body was still surrounded by a thick purple will. This purple will was getting thicker and thicker. It almost dyed Zhuan's entire body purple. Fifth level of the will, Zhuan murmured in a low voice. He looked into the distance. It was as if he could see the beautiful figure leaving. He knew that Moyan Wushang was deliberately helping him to improve his will. Feng Shi returns to her hometown, roams the 4 seas in search of another phoenix. When I didn't meet her, there was no general. How could I comprehend today's rising hall? Feng Shi perches with me. I'll entrust her to be my concubine forever. Friendship is mutual and harmonious. Who is the one who understands each other in the middle of the night? One softly recited the lyrics of Feng Shi. His heart became more determined. Then, he turned into a stream of light and entered the heavenly armor planet. Zhuan stayed on the heavenly armor planet for a few days. He told the higher-ups of the heavenly armor planet everything about him and his plans to take the heavenly armor planet away. At the same time, Zhuan gave the congealing spirit pills to Long Xiaotian, Yuan Hongwen, Ji Chenyan, and the others. He hoped that they could reach the divine transformation realm soon. Although everyone felt that the matter of Devour's possession was unbelievable, they all chose to believe in Zhuan. This made Zhuan feel much more relieved. 3 days later, Zhuan stood in the sky above the heavenly armor planet. He waved his sleeve and a huge black vortex appeared. It directly sucked the entire heavenly armor planet into it and stored it in his inner world. Then, he rode the giant flame beast and completely left the Huaxia heavenly territory. Master, why don't you let me see Junior Brother? Isn't Junior Brother still alive? 2 figures stood at the edge of the Huaxia heavenly territory. One of them was an old Taoist with a casual expression. The other was a woman in the same Taoist robe. However, this woman had an otherworldly temperament and was extremely beautiful. Lian Meng, he is no longer my disciple, nor is he your junior brother. Back then, he said that was the last time he would call me master. Tai Ching shook his head. A rare complicated look appeared in his eyes. He finally understood why Zhuan would sacrifice himself so generously. It turned out that he still had a trick up his sleeve. This was something that he had never expected. Lian Meng waved her fist and pouted. He's my junior brother. Tai Ching patted Lian Meng's head and said, there are some things that you still don't understand. However, I do know that he will definitely return to the Huaxia heavenly territory. At that time, you will be able to see him. However, with his current progress, it is only a matter of time before he surpasses you. Lian Meng refused to accept this and said, then I will cultivate properly. If junior brother really returns, my cultivation will definitely be higher than his. I don't need his protection. At that time, I will be the one to protect him. Tai Ching smiled. He knew that he had completely aroused Lian Meng's urge to cultivate. However, he was also shocked. He did not expect Zhuan to improve so quickly. Now, he was actually able to instantly kill a true god like Pantheon. Furthermore, he also discovered the obscure aura on Zhuan's body. He was very familiar with that aura, but he did not expose it. Disciple. Calamities and blessings depend on each other, and blessings are hidden within calamities. At the same time that you have obtained a great opportunity, you will also have to bear a great calamity. If you can survive it, perhaps you will truly have the qualifications to speak with me as an equal. Tai Ching silently looked at Zhuan's back in the distance. His eyes were filled with calmness. Ren, who was on the flame beast, frowned. He kept having the feeling that he was being spied on. However, when he used his powerful divine sense to continuously scan the area, he did not find any clues. Could it be my misperception? Zhuan muttered in a low voice. In the ice-cold and dark starry sky, countless stars flickered, emitting a terrifying light. A fiery light streaked across the starry sky, leaving behind an insignificant mark in the vast starry sky. The barrier between the heaven regions should be here. However, this barrier is extremely hard. It is almost impossible to break it and cross the heaven regions, unless it is a powerful void heaven expert. When Zhuan landed not far from the barrier, he clearly felt a powerful stagnation coming from the barrier. It was as if countless mountains were pressing down on him, causing his speed to sharply decrease. It is said that there is a special passage between the heaven domain and the heaven domain. However, that passage is extremely dangerous. Those below the true God realm will definitely die. Even the true God realm has a high chance of falling. Only those extremely powerful true God realm experts have a high chance of passing through the passage. Chapter 1943. Space turbulence. Wowen's soul consciousness was extremely powerful, so he found the specific passage in just a blink of an eye. It was a cave that emitted colorful lights. The structure inside was like countless spirals spinning unceasingly. Shi Yan couldn't see what was inside the cave. Zhuan was clear that this was the passage between the heaven territories, which was filled with space turbulence. The power of the space turbulence was so intimidating that warriors below the true God realm couldn't bear it. Entering the cave meant certain death. Zhuan had also heard of the passage between the heavenly domain and the heavenly domain. The turbulence in the starry sky was too terrifying, but Zhuan reckoned that with his current physique, he should still be able to withstand the turbulence. Thinking about that, Zhuan took a step forward and jumped into the cave. Swoosh, swoosh. The moment Zhuan entered the cave, he immediately sensed a multicolored substance that resembled airflow around him. There was no air in the starry sky, so there was no airflow. However, Shi Yan could feel the intimidating airflow in this passage. Moreover, it was the colorful airflow. This five-colored airflow isn't simple. It contains a powerful strangling power. The moment Zhuan sensed the five-colored air current, he could feel the terrifying destructive force that bombarded his body wherever the air current passed. Fortunately, before Zhuan entered the cave, he had secretly activated Devour's body. With Devour's powerful body, he could resist the strangling power of the five-colored airflow. After making sure that he didn't miss anything, Zhuan started to move deeper into the cave. However, this airflow was against the wind. Thus, when Zhuan was moving forward, he met a strong resistance, which slowed down his speed. After flying for around 10 days, Zhuan suddenly realized that the five-colored airflow's force had become stronger. Zhuan's speed slowed down unceasingly, as if he was walking on the spot. Why did the resistance suddenly become so strong? Zhuan furrowed his brows, his eyes frightened. He had to use the 5th level of Dao intent. The thick purple intent spread all over his body. Zhuan moved as fast as lightning, getting rid of the resistance of the five-colored airflow. However, after flying for half a day, Zhuan realized that something was wrong. This was because the five-colored air current seemed to be getting more and more terrifying. It was surging violently as if a storm was coming. Space storm. Zhuan stopped abruptly as he saw the terrifying five-colored storm surging several 100,000 feet in front of him. Moreover, there wasn't only one five-colored storm, but 3. The 3 starry sky storms surged and blocked the entire passageway outside. The road ahead was also sealed tightly. Not good. Zhuan's face darkened. Of course, he had heard of the space storm. Generally speaking, in the passageways between the heavenly domain and the heavenly domain, the most common thing that appeared was the chaotic flow of space. Although the space turbulence was intimidating, a slightly stronger true god could still pass through the space turbulence. However, once the space storm appeared, unless it was a top true god, most true gods wouldn't be able to withstand the terrifying impact of the space storm. Now, not only was there a space storm in front of Zhuan, but there were 3 of them. To Zhuan, it was definitely a double disaster. If I want to avoid this calamity, I can only pass through the space storm. Zhuan sighed. He knew that he had to use all of his strength to fight for a chance of survival. Thinking of this, endless black air appeared around Zhuan. The black air spread quickly, covering an area of 10,000 feet in an instant. Countless refined souls appeared in the black air. Innate super ability, purgatory. Zhuan used Devour's innate super ability. Then, the purple intent around his body became more intense. He took out the thunder fire sword with his right hand, and endless black flames surrounded him. With the weakening effect of purgatory and the support of Dao intent, Zhuan immediately used the 4 sword moves: sword-piercing brambles, first appearance of sword light, like the sun in the sky, and time of the dark moon. At the same time, he also released the purplish-black lightning from the massacre finger and heaven-devouring eye. After doing all this, Zhuan activated the indestructible yellow art. Waves of yellow gas that emitted a dignified aura surrounded his body, causing him to shine with a golden light. He was like a god in heaven, inviolable. Zhuan's attacks were launched with terrifying power. Even a true god of 2 disasters might not be able to survive under such attacks. It could be seen how terrifying the attacks were. Rumble. The terrifying roars continued to resound. The 3 space storms that were coming with menacing momentum paused for a while. At the same time, the space storm in the center suddenly created a huge gap. The moment the gap appeared, Yuan kicked with his right foot and quickly entered the gap. Looking at the space storm that was gradually fading away, Zhuan's face turned slightly pale. His forehead was even covered with fine cold sweat. The space storm was really terrifying. Even if he used all of his attacks, he could only create a gap. Zhuan suddenly discovered something. His spiritual consciousness radiated out and landed on a circular protrusion not far in front of him on the right side. After taking the round bulge, Yuan realized that it was an oval-shaped colored stone. The colored stone was flowing with colorful light and emitted a sweet smell. Space-quenching stone? Zhuan squinted his eyes. As the name suggested, space-quenching stone was a stone that existed in the space turbulence and had been quenched for countless years. It could be said that space-quenching stone was rarer than the space storm. The stone's main function was to quench a cultivator's spiritual soul, making it purer and more stable. This is a good thing. Zhuan's eyes twinkled. He pointed with his right hand and pressed the space-quenching stone deep between his eyebrows, placing it in his spiritual soul. The space-quenching stone had a subtle effect on spiritual soul quenching, and it wouldn't have a great effect immediately. Hence, Zhuan planned to place the space-quenching stone in his spiritual space. As time went by, he knew that the effect of space-quenching stone on his spiritual soul quenching would become more obvious. After obtaining the space-quenching stone, Yuan was in a good mood. He knew that as long as he completely refined the space-quenching stone, his spiritual soul wouldn't be comparable to an ordinary real god's. The power that the soul-absorbing divine needle could unleash would naturally increase. Another 2 months passed. Zhuan was extremely careful in the turbulent flow of the starry sky. Although he encountered a starry sky storm later on, he managed to avoid them one by one. Moreover, the starry sky storms that appeared later on were all solitary and were far less powerful than the first one. It seems that the end of the space turbulence is in front of me. Not far ahead, Yuan realized that it was no longer colorful but a starry sky. He knew that he was about to reach the other side. In other words, he was about to reach the boundary of the great Brahma domain. Just as he was about to rush out of the passageway, a figure in a sorry state flew back and happened to crash into Zhuan's arms. Zhuan subconsciously hugged the figure, and a delicate fragrance slowly drifted into his nose. Only then did he realize that the person who was flying back was actually a woman. The lady was about 20 years old. Her face was pale and there was blood at the corner of her mouth. She was short of breath and obviously, she was seriously injured. At that moment, the lady opened her bright eyes and looked into Zhuan's eyes. She suddenly let out a soft cry and wanted to get up. However, she helplessly realized that her injuries were too serious and she collapsed in Zhuan's arms again. She didn't know why she suddenly appeared in the arms of a strange man. She clearly remembered that she was forced into the space turbulence known as the Land of Death. With her cultivation of peak divine realm, she would definitely die if she entered the space turbulence. This is the space turbulence? I'm still alive? The lady looked around and found that there were indeed colorful chi flows around her. This was the inside of the space turbulence. But logically speaking, she should have been strangled to death by these colorful chi flows. She didn't expect to be safe and sound. Even the colorful chi flows around her had bypassed her. The colorful chi flows were naturally not because of her, so she quickly thought of the strange man who was holding her in his arms. She immediately knew that the reason why the colorful chi flows didn't attack her was because of this man in front of her. Don't move. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that I can still protect you and block all the chi flows around you. If you don't want to die, you'd better lie on my body. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. Although he wasn't afraid of the colorful chi flows with his physical body, the sudden addition of another person put a lot of pressure on him. So he immediately warned the lady in his arms. The lady let out a low cry and immediately lay in Zhuowen's arms, not daring to move. Although this position was a little embarrassing, the lady had to do it. If the outside world knew that she was lying on a strange man's body in such a position, she really wouldn't have the face to see anyone. Zhuowen's right hand was around the lady's waist. He could clearly feel that the lady's body trembled the moment his right arm touched her waist. However, he didn't have any dirty thoughts. The exit of the space turbulence was close at hand. He didn't want to fail at the last moment. Let's go. Zhuowen exerted the heaven and earth immortality to the extreme. Golden chi surrounded the two of them. Then, like a vigorous ape, Zhuowen rushed out of the exit and entered the space outside. I'm still alive. Seeing the familiar starry sky, the lady's beautiful eyes were filled with joy. However, before she could smile, the arm that was holding her waist suddenly loosened. She cried out in surprise and almost fell into the starry sky. If she hadn't reacted in time, she would have made a fool of herself. You, the lady's starry eyes stared at Zhuowen angrily. Just as she was about to say something, Zhuowen slowly took out the star plate and immediately rushed in a direction. He knew that this should be the Great Brahma Domain. He planned to find a nearby galaxy and by the star map of the Great Brahma Domain. After all, he didn't know the general map of the Great Brahma Domain, let alone the specific location of the Yin, Qin, Yuan, and Quebec. Chapter 1944. Brahma Star Zhuowen stepped on the astrolabe and slowly moved forward. After he came out, his powerful divine sense had already discovered a planet not far away. He planned to go to that planet first and then try to understand where he was in the Great Brahma Domain. Soon, the woman that he had saved blocked his path. Why are you stopping me? Zhuowen frowned. You can't go there. Your consciousness should have detected a planet in front, right? I'm telling you clearly, don't go to that planet, or you'll regret it, the woman said in a deep voice. Zhuowen raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect the woman in front of him to be so cautious. Could it be that the planet in front of him was a scourge? Seeing Zhuowen stop, the woman sighed softly. Just as she was about to say something, her expression suddenly changed. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. He found a consciousness extremely wantonly sweeping over and firmly locking onto him and the woman. I didn't expect a little woman like you to still be alive. How did you walk out of that chaotic space? A surprised voice was heard. Then, a figure flew over from not far away. It was a midget with a dark green face. He carried a giant axe on his back. He looked neither fish nor fowl. However, the midget's aura was extremely powerful. Zhuowen estimated that he should be a fake true god. The midget didn't even look at Zhuowen. This Zhuowen's aura was only a late-stage heavenly god. He was no threat to him at all. Xiao Tong, a wise man submits to circumstances. Hand over the ice flame profound yellow Ganoderma. This thing is useless to you, the midget said indifferently. The woman called Xiao Tong bit her cherry lips and said in a deep voice, Qi Ching, you're going too far. This ice flame profound yellow Ganoderma is our sect master's life-saving item. Don't even think about taking it away. The midget sneered and said, your sect master is just a person who's about to die. Using this ice flame profound yellow Ganoderma is a waste. You might as well just hand it over to me. However, since you don't want to hand it over, don't blame me for being rude. This time, I won't give you the chance to escape into the turbulence of space. The midget was already impatient. He took out a huge axe with his right hand and swung it at Xiao Tong. Although the midget's target was Xiao Tong, because Xiao Tong was very close to Zhuowen, the range of the midget's attack also included Zhuowen. Judging from the dwarf's strength, it was obvious that he intended to kill Zhuowen as well. In other words, killing Zhuowen was just a side benefit to him. "I've implicated you. You should leave quickly. I'll do my best to stop Qi Cheng." Xiao Tong's pretty face was ghastly pale, but she clearly distinguished between kindness and hatred. After she spoke to Zhuowen, she withdrew a green sword and intended to fight the dwarf to the death. Unfortunately, before Xiao Tong could make a move, Zhuowen's iron dew sword had already attacked. Only to see his iron reed sword leave his hand, fiercely exploding in front of the dwarf. "It's merely a high-quality heavenly divine artifact." The midget glanced at the iron dew sword with extreme disdain, then casually swung his huge axe down. Afterwards, the midget's pupils abruptly shrunk. He felt that the iron dew sword contained a terrifying energy. Then, he vomited a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. And it was precisely in the instant when the midget was sent flying that the iron dew sword's speed was extremely fast. It instantly streaked across the midget's forehead and completely destroyed his soul. From the moment the midget attacked to when he was killed by Zhuowen, it was merely an instant. Xiao Tong didn't even have time to react before the midget was killed. Seeing Zhuowen unhurriedly put away the midget's spiritual ring, Xiao Tong stood to the side in a daze. The young man before her clearly emitted an aura of a late heavenly deity. How could his strength be so terrifying? The false true god Xiao Tong was actually killed in a single strike. However, Xiao Tong soon recalled that it was this man before her who saved her in the turbulence of space. She had personally experienced how terrifying the turbulence of space was. For the man before her to be able to survive in there and even save her, it could be seen that this man was extraordinary and powerful. After regaining her senses, Xiao Tong looked at Zhuowen with a gaze filled with reverence and a trace of passion. She knew that her eldest senior sister could be saved. After putting away the spiritual ring, Zhuowen took a quick glance at Xiao Tong. Then he continued to drive the astrolabe forward unhurriedly. Soon after, he said indifferently, "Earlier, you said that we can't go to that planet. Is it because of this person?" Xiao Tong shook her head and said, "Not entirely. That planet is called the Brahma Star. It's a border planet of the Great Brahma Domain. There are no laws or regulations on this planet. Everything depends on one's strength and power. It's an extremely chaotic planet. Heavenly deities are often in danger of dying on this planet." Zhuowen nodded. It seemed that Xiao Tong thought he was an ordinary late heavenly deity cultivator. That was why she advised him not to go to the Brahma Star. However, after seeing Zhuowen kill the dwarf, she didn't try to persuade him again. Obviously, she thought that Zhuowen was strong enough. Even Zhuowen could feel that after he showed his strength, Xiao Tong's eyes were blazing with passion. It was as if he was some kind of extremely precious treasure. "This little girl's name is Xiao Tong. I'm a disciple of the Crepe Myrtle sect in the Great Brahma Domain's second-grade star system. May I know the name of my benefactor?" Xiao Tong said enthusiastically. "Dun," Zhuowen said lightly. This place was the Great Brahma Domain, not the Huaxia Domain, so Zhuowen didn't need to hide his real name. "Big brother Zhuo, your cultivation is so high. You must be from a famous sect, right?" Xiao Tong said as if they were close friends. "I'm just a rogue cultivator. By the way, miss, did you buy the Ice Flame Profound Yellow Ganoderma from the Brahma Star?" Zhuowen suddenly asked. From Xiao Tong's words, he could tell that the Brahma Star was different. Moreover, the Brahma Star was the only planet on the border. It was impossible for Xiao Tong to bring a level 5 divine herb to such a dangerous planet. Then there was only one possibility. Xiao Tong bought the Ice Flame Profound Yellow Ganoderma from the Brahma Star, and for some reason, it was targeted by the dwarf. When Zhuowen mentioned the Ice Flame Profound Yellow Zoysia, Xiao Tong's expression immediately tensed up. She stammered, "Big brother Zhuo is right. I did buy this from the Brahma Fiend Star, but I used our sect's divine stones to buy this Ice Flame Profound Yellow Zoysia in hopes of saving our sect master." Seeing Xiao Tong like this, Yun smiled slightly. He really didn't covet the ice flame profound yellow Ganoderma in Xiao Tong's hands. One had to know that in the fiery cloud region, Yuan had obtained many kinds of divine herbs, including many kinds of level 5 divine herbs. Zhuan also had the ice flame mysterious yellow Ganoderma, and its quality was extremely high. Naturally, he would not take a fancy to the ice flame mysterious yellow Ganoderma in Xiao Tong's hands. Xiao Tong heaved a sigh of relief in her heart when she saw that Zhuan didn't mention the ice flame profound yellow Zoisha. She knew very well that with Zhuowen's strength, she had no room to refuse if he wanted her ice flame profound yellow Zoisha. Miss Xiao, I would like to purchase a star map of the waxing, waning, waxing, waxing, waxing and waning phases. Is there such a star map for the Brahma Fiend star? Zhuowen asked suddenly. Waxing and waning? Xiao Tong was stunned, and then she looked at Zhuowen with a strange expression and said, Big brother Zhuo, the yin, yang, waxing and crescent moons are extremely famous danger zones in the Great Brahma region. That place is very dangerous, and it is said that many true gods have fallen there. Where are you going? Danger and opportunity coexist. Since you want an opportunity, you naturally have to pay a price. Moreover, I just want to take a look. I don't necessarily need to enter the waxing and waning, Zhuan said lightly. Xiao Tong agreed and said in a deep voice, although the Brahma star is a border planet and is full of danger, the flow of cultivators is great. The shops and auctions here are extremely famous even in the heaven domain. If Big Brother Zhuo needs the waxing and waning star map, the Brahma star will definitely sell it, but the price is not low. Moreover, I heard that the entrance to the waxing and waning is mysterious. It is not easy to enter. You need a specific method. Zhuan raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, a specific method? What kind of method is needed? Xiao Tong shook her head and said, I don't know. The waxing and waning are extremely far from here. The Brahma star is the eastern border of the Great Brahma domain, but the waxing and waning are close to the western border. The distance between the two stretches across the entire heaven domain. With my meager strength, I am not qualified to go to the waxing and waning. I only know about it from others. Zhuowen hadn't expected the yin-yang, waxing moons, and crescent moons to be so far away from here. He had personally experienced the vastness of the heaven domain. Even a void heaven supreme expert would need a long time to travel across the heaven domain, let alone Zhuowen. According to Zhuowen's current speed, if Zhuowen didn't eat or drink for thousands of years, it would be difficult for him to travel across the Great Brahma domain. Therefore, Zhuowen's expression became unsightly. Xiao Tong also noticed that Zhuowen's expression wasn't good. She smiled and said, Big brother Zhuo, don't worry. There are ancient and powerful teleportation arrays in the core star field of the Great Brahma domain. These teleportation arrays can teleport people from the surrounding star field to a designated location. If Big Brother Zhuo really wants to go to the waxing and waning, you can spend a certain amount of divine stones and use the ancient star field teleportation array to go to the star system near the waxing and waning. Generally, powerful cultivators who want to go to the waxing and waning do this. However, there seems to be some restrictions. I'm not too sure what the restrictions are. Hearing this, Zhuowen's expression eased a lot. He cupped his fists towards Xiao Tong and said, Many thanks for the reminder, Miss Xiao. Xiao Tong waved her hand embarrassedly and suddenly became hesitant. Miss Xiao, is there something wrong? Zhuowen asked. Xiao Tong sighed softly and said, Big brother Zhuo, Qi Cheng, who you killed just now, wasn't a rogue cultivator. He was a member of the Jianghong Trading Company, one of the 3 great trading companies on the Fiery Fiend Star. I hope Big Brother Zhuo will be careful when you enter the Fiery Fiend Star. Zhuowen nodded, but he still stared at Xiao Tong. He could see that Xiao Tong still had something to say. Xiao Tong gritted her teeth. She suddenly bent down and bowed deeply to Zhuowen. She said, Big Brother Zhuo, Xiao Tong begs you to help me with something. You're so strong, so you'll definitely be able to help me. Chapter 1945. Jianghong Trading Company. Xiao Tong's face was pale and her body was trembling. She raised her head and looked at Zhuowen with a cold expression. She knew that her request was a little too much, but she really didn't know who else could help her. Although the Crepe Myrtle sect was a second-grade galaxy and there were many true gods in the sect, they were at the border and were too far away from the Crepe Myrtle galaxy. If she relied on herself to fly, she wouldn't be able to return even after a few hundred years. She could only return through the teleportation array on the Brahma Terminus star. However, the teleportation array on the Brahma Terminus star was under the surveillance of the Jiang Hong Trading Company. Once she entered the teleportation array, she would be immediately discovered by the Jiang Hong Trading Company and captured. Moreover, the Crepe Myrtle sect disciples who came to the Brahma Terminus star to purchase the Ice Flame mysterious yellow Ganoderma were all captured by the Jiang Hong Trading Company. She was the only one who took the opportunity to slip away. However, she was forced into the turbulent space by Qi Cheng. Although she knew that her request was too much, she had no other choice. She could only beg the man in front of her. "Brother Zhuo, I'm sorry. I went too far." Xiao Tong bit her lower lip and remained silent. She didn't dare to speak anymore. Seeing Xiao Tong like this, Jun shook his head and used the shapeless all-life to completely change Xiao Tong's aura and appearance. "Miss Xiao, this is a powerful technique to change one's appearance. Ordinary true gods wouldn't be able to detect it, so take care of yourself." After Zhuan finished speaking, he entered the Brahma Terminus star, leaving Xiao Tong standing there in a daze. The moment Zhuan entered the Brahma Terminus star, he smelled a pungent smell of blood. Then, he looked up and saw that the entire sky of the Brahma Terminus star was filled with blood clouds. Most of the buildings on the planet were blood red. Most of the forces on the Brahma Terminus star were gathered in the Brahma Terminus city. The Brahma Terminus city was the core city of the Brahma Terminus star. There were many shops selling all kinds of things, such as divine herbs, divine pills, divine weapons, and even divine beasts. Here, as long as you had divine stones, there was almost nothing you couldn't buy. This was also the reason why the Brahma Fiend star was so famous in the entire Great Brahma domain. After all, this was considered the most prosperous planet in the Great Brahma domain. However, it was also the most chaotic and evil planet. The law of the jungle was much more blatant here than in other regions. It was all too common to kill without a word. Zhuan had seen many such cases along the way. "You just arrived?" The guards of Fan Fiend City looked at Zhuan from head to toe as they mocked him. Zhuan glanced at a late heavenly god cultivator beside him. After handing over 100 god stones, he took out 100 god stones from his spirit ring and handed them to the guard. Zhuan was about to enter. "Hold on. Since this is your first time here, you'll have to charge a little more. Take out 1,000 divine stones." The guard said calmly. Zhuan slowly turned his head, and a ray of terrifying divine light shot out from his eyes. Instantly, the guard's body trembled. He felt a terrifying pressure from Zhuan's eyes that he had never felt before. This pressure was like a dark cloud that came crashing down mightily, occupying his entire heart. The guard took a few steps back, but Zhuan didn't care at all. He slowly walked into Fan Fiend City. Another guard looked at the guard in surprise and said, "What's wrong with you? Why do you look like a fool all of a sudden? You don't even ask for divine stones." The guard shook his head and looked at Zhuan's back with fear. He said fearfully, "This man is too scary. I don't dare to provoke him." After entering Fan Fiend City, Yun casually strolled through the streets. It was an eye-opener for him. In Fan Fiend City, there were indeed all kinds of shops. Moreover, there was a dazzling array of things inside. There were all kinds of things and there were all kinds of things. Suddenly, a skinny man stopped in front of Zhuan. Zhuan frowned slightly as he stared at the skinny man in front of him. This man's cultivation wasn't high. He was only a demigod. He didn't know why this man stopped him. "Sir, is this your first time in Fan Fiend City?" The skinny man immediately smiled obsequiously. Zhuan nodded noncommittally. The obsequious smile on the skinny man's face deepened. He said, "I am Qian. I have been in Fan Fiend City for more than 70 years. I am very familiar with this place. If you want to quickly understand Fan Fiend City, I can help you. Also, if you need any information, I will try my best to get it for you." Although the scrawny man's strength wasn't strong, his ability to read people's expressions was top-notch. He could tell at a glance that Zhuowen was a newcomer and didn't know much about this place. He would definitely need a veteran like him, who had been through many hardships in Fanfin City, to lead the way. Zhuowen sized up the skinny man in front of him. It was his first time in Fanfin City. Indeed, he needed someone he knew to lead him. Moreover, he wanted to buy a star chart here. After walking around for a while, he realized that none of the shops sold star charts. Just as he was about to ask someone, the skinny man had already jumped out. Sure. How do you calculate the cost? Zhuowen knew that this skinny man, Qian, should be a specialist in this kind of business in Fanfin City. Hence, he directly asked for the price. Qian rubbed his hands and said, "My lord, it is not expensive. 1 divine stone per day is enough. As long as my lord has any orders, Qian will immediately do it for you. However, if there is any additional cost, my lord will have to pay for it." Zhuowen nodded and casually threw 10 divine stones to Qian. He said, "I will hire you for 10 days. First, help me find an inn." Qian took the 10 divine stones and smiled. He quickly nodded and bowed. "My lord, the inns here are very expensive. Qian has a more affordable place. It is just that the location is a little remote, so, sure, as long as you can find a place to stay." Qian quickly responded. He then led Zhuowen to the inn he was staying at. The inn that Qian was staying at was indeed very remote. The price was also very cheap. Fortunately, Zhuowen wasn't picky about his accommodations. Hence, he didn't show any dissatisfaction. "Qian, I just walked around Fanfin City for a while. I didn't see any star charts being sold in the shops on both sides of the street. Are the star charts in Fanfin City so rare?" Zhuowen sat in the room and asked Qian. Qian was startled. He then said strangely, "My lord, in the Great Brahma region, star charts are relatively common. However, in Fanfin Star, they are extremely rare. This is because everything in Fanfin Star is controlled by the 3 major trading companies. Ordinary star charts can only be purchased from the 3 major trading companies." "The 3 major trading companies? Which is the nearest trading company?" Zhuowen asked. "My lord, it's the Jianghong Trading Company. Are you going there now?" Qian asked respectfully. Zhuowen shook his head and said, "No need. Help me find out if the Jianghong Trading Company has the star map of the locations of the waning moons. I will go to the Jianghong Trading Company tomorrow to purchase them." Qian nodded and left the room. The next day, Qian came to Zhuowen's room and said with some hesitation, "My lord, I've asked around. The waning, waxing, waning and waning star maps are extremely rare in the Jianghong Trading Company. Therefore, the Jianghong Trading Company's asking price is very high. How much?" Zhuowen replied with a flick of his sleeve. 300,000 godstones. Qian looked at Zhuowen, gritted his teeth, and announced the price. Zhuowen frowned. A mere star chart actually cost 300,000 divine stones. What was the difference between this and robbery? However, Zhuowen urgently needed this kind of star map. Although the price was expensive, Zhuowen still planned to buy it. "My lord, do you really plan to buy it?" Seeing Zhuowen step out of the room, Qian was astonished. At the same time, his heart was filled with shock. He knew that the Zhuowen in front of him could very well have 300,000 divine stones, or even more. Thinking of this, Qian became even more respectful of Zhuowen. He knew that a cultivator who could possess so many divine stones was definitely not simple. The Jianghong Trading Company was indeed not far. Qian and Zhuowen only walked for half an hour before they arrived at the Jianghong Trading Company. The Jianghong Trading Company was extremely large. Inside, there were layers upon layers of pavilions. It was extremely grand and majestic. There were people coming and going, and it was very lively. Under Qian's lead, Zhuowen came to a rather luxurious counter in the Jianghong Trading Company. A female cultivator with a professional smile stood in front of the counter. She looked at Zhuowen and said, "Customer, is there anything you need?" "I need the waning, waxing, waning and waning star maps," Zhuowen said indifferently. Hearing this, the female cultivator's eyes lit up. The value of a waning, waxing, waning and waning star map was not low. A cultivator who could afford such an item must have a great background. Customer, please wait a moment. I will go in and retrieve the star map for you. After the female cultivator finished speaking, she walked into the inner room. After a while, she came out again and handed an emerald green jade slip to Juan. After receiving the jade slip, Juan looked through it. Then, he handed the storage bag with 300,000 divine stones to the female cultivator. Dear customer, our company will be holding an auction 3 days from now. If you are interested, you can take this VIP card and participate in the auction 3 days from now. After receiving the divine stone, the female cultivator handed over a jade card and said with a smile. After buying the star map, Juan was in a good mood. He took the jade card from the female cultivator. Juan did not care much about this item. His main goal this time was the star map. Since he had bought the star map, he did not plan to stay here any longer. The Jianghong Trading Company is also holding an auction that is held once every 3 years? My lord, I am afraid that there will be some good items in this auction. Ah Qian suddenly said excitedly. Juan was a little surprised by Ah Qian's expression. However, after Ah Qian's explanation, he realized that the auction held by the Jianghong Trading Company this time was not ordinary. Generally speaking, trading companies would often hold auctions. However, they were relatively small and the items auctioned were not considered precious. However, this was an auction that was held once every 3 years. It was extremely grand. There would probably be many good items in this auction. Last year, the large-scale auction held by the Dazzling Light Trading Company had auctioned off a level 7 divine medicine, which caused countless experts to fight over it. Chapter 1946. Sequoia, esteemed guest, there are indeed some good things in this auction. According to my insider information, there will be a level 7 divine pill. If esteemed guest is really interested, you must attend in 3 days. The female cultivator winked at Juan. Juan showed a faint smile, although he knew that this female cultivator deliberately used this gimmick to attract him to the auction, but Juan still intended to go to the auction to take a look. He was very clear on how precious a level 7 divine pill was. Even if he didn't have many divine stones on him, he still wanted to see what this legendary level 7 divine pill was. After leaving the Jianghong Trading Company, Juan went straight back to the inn and immediately went into seclusion. He planned to use these 3 days to take a good look at the waning waxing waning star chart. 3 days later, Juan walked out of his room, but his expression was somewhat gloomy. According to the star map, anyone who wanted to use the teleportation array in the core star field of the Great Brahma domain had to be a member of a star field or settle down in the core star field. Juan hadn't achieved either of these, so once he reached the core star field, it would be wishful thinking to use the teleportation array there. Looks like we can only take one step at a time. After this auction, I will head to the core star field and see if there is a chance to use the teleportation array to go to the waning moon. Juan rubbed his temples and muttered in a low voice. My lord. When Juan opened the door, Ah Qian was like a cat that smelled blood. He immediately appeared in front of Juan's door with a fawning smile. When will the auction begin? Juan asked. Ah Qian hurriedly said, Today is noon, there are still 4 hours. Juan nodded and said in a low voice, Seems like there's still some time. Do you know where I can buy the mysterious yellow chi? Ah Qian was startled and immediately said, My lord, the black and yellow chi is rather common. Every shop in Fan Fiend City sells it. Juan shook his head and said, I know. It's just that the amount of profound yellow chi in those shops is too little. I need more. Do you know where the profound yellow chi in those shops comes from? Ah Qian pondered for a moment before saying, The mysterious yellow chi is mainly extracted from the mysterious yellow or vein. The mysterious yellow or vein in the Brahma Fiend star is not abundant. The only or vein is in the hands of the Song clan in Songren City. The mysterious yellow chi in the shops in Brahma Fiend star is basically transported from the Song clan in Songren City. Hearing this, Juan nodded his head. He was still wary of the Song family. He was very clear that his indestructible mysterious yellow required a large amount of mysterious yellow chi. He was afraid that ordinary mysterious yellow qi would not be enough to satisfy him. Since there were still 4 hours before the auction would begin, Yuan and Qian began to stroll around Fan Fin City. Soon enough, Zhuan arrived at the Fan Fin City's teleportation array. The teleportation array was extremely lively. There were crowds of people queuing up, forming a dark mass. It was obvious that there were many cultivators coming and going at the teleportation array. Did you guys know? It is said that Qi Cheng from the Jianghong Trading Company has been killed. It is said that the person who killed Qi Cheng is Xiao Tong from the Crepe Myrtle sect, who was previously wanted by the Jianghong Trading Company. It can't be. That Xiao Tong is only a late-stage heavenly god. How could she kill Qi Cheng? Could it be that she used some despicable means? It should be. Yesterday, that Xiao Tong was caught by the people from the Jianghong Trading Company. That Xiao Tong admitted that she killed Qi Cheng, so, suddenly, a conversation between a pair of cultivators came from the side. When Zhuan heard it, his pupils could not help but shrink. He did not expect that Xiao Tong would be caught. Logically speaking, his shapeless all-life was extremely secretive. As long as that Xiao Tong did not court death and immediately teleported away, she should not have been caught. However, the problem now was that not only had Xiao Tong been caught, but the whole city knew about it. At the same time, Yuan had a good impression of Xiao Tong for not ratting him out. Forget it. This matter is somewhat related to me. If there's a chance, I should rescue her. Zhuan sighed in his heart. Of course, Zhuan would not act rashly because of this. Although he did feel sympathy for that Xiao Tong, if the Jianghong Trading Company was really that powerful, he would not seek his own death. Thinking of this, Zhuan looked at Qian and asked, Qian, do you know how powerful the Jianghong Trading Company is? Are there any void sky experts among them? Qian was stunned. Soon after, he said hesitantly, My lord, the founders of the 3 great trading companies are all void sky experts. However, there is only one of them. 3 void sky experts are the pinnacle experts in the Fan Fin Star. Although some void sky experts occasionally come to the Fan Fin Star, most of them come for the star's auction. Since the Jianghong Trading Company is auctioning a level 7 divine pill this time, I'm afraid some void sky experts will come to bid for it. Hearing this, Zhuan frowned slightly. Although his current strength was not bad, it was still too difficult for him to fight against a void sky expert. Moreover, it was not that there were no experts among the true gods. For example, a true god who had survived more than a dozen calamities would be a true freak. Moreover, although Zhuowen's speed was rather fast, it was only comparable to an ordinary true god. Even if he had the support of the 5th level Dao intent, it was still impossible for him to be comparable to a void sky expert. However, Zhuan quickly thought of the void sky divine ability, Torch Dragon 9-headed infant. Up until now, Zhuan had never cultivated the Torch Dragon 9-headed infant. The reason was not that Zhuan was unwilling, but that he was unable to cultivate it at the moment. The Torch Dragon 9-headed infant was a powerful movement technique that required dragon wings to be used. Moreover, the wings had to be at the divine dragon level or above. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to cultivate it. Of course, the introduction of the divine ability mentioned that the Torch Dragon wings were the best item to cultivate this divine ability. Unfortunately, the Torch Dragon was a powerful divine dragon in the legends. It was said that it had already surpassed the category of divine dragons. How could it have such a thing? The requirements for the divine dragon wings were much lower, but it was still very rare. Xiao Hei's original body was the Great Nether Saint Dragon, but it had not reached the divine dragon level. This showed how rare divine dragons were. Moreover, he had also heard that the legendary divine dragons were one of the most powerful races in the universe. They were a race as powerful as Devour. Although there were more of them than Devour, it was not much more. Zhuan sighed softly. At this moment he was somewhat hesitant. He could not afford to provoke a void sky expert at the moment. He really did not want to provoke a void sky expert because of Xiao Tong. However, since Zhuan knew that Xiao Tong had been captured, he could not bear to see her being captured. I can use the shapeless all-life to sneak into the prison to take a look. If it doesn't work, I can use the divine stones to redeem Xiao Tong. Zhuan thought to himself. After all, the Jianghong Trading Company was a business. Compared to people, he knew that the Jianghong Trading Company valued the divine stones more. Although Zhuan did not have many divine stones, he had a lot of fire spirit juice and many divine herbs. His foundation could even be compared to a galaxy. However, Zhuan had planted all his divine herbs in the heavenly armor star in Devour's internal world. Moreover, Zhuan had placed many divine stones in the heavenly armor star. Under the influence of the divine stones, the heavenly armor star had subtly transformed into a denser and more powerful planet. He believed that as he continued to transform the heavenly armor star, it would definitely become an extremely powerful planet in the future. By then, there would be more and more heavenly gods. What he needed to do was to continuously increase the number of planets in his body and use other planets to serve the heavenly armor star. After strolling around for a while, Yuan and Qian entered the auction house that the Jianghong Trading Company had set up. It had to be said that the Jianghong Trading Company's current flow of people was really terrifying. Fortunately, Yuan had a VIP card. After handing it to the staff of the trading company, the staff respectfully led him to the VIP box around the auction house. As for Qian, Yuan sent him away. There were many arrays in the VIP box. They were mainly used to shield one's divine sense. This was to prevent others from spying on the owner of the box. However, Yuan's divine sense was extremely powerful. Moreover, it had been tempered by the starry sky quenching stone. Not only was his divine sense powerful, but its penetrative power was also much stronger than that of ordinary cultivators. If he wanted to enter the shielding array outside the box, he could do it. However, if he did so, he would definitely be discovered by the cultivators in the box. At that time, it would cause unnecessary trouble. As soon as noon arrived, the auction house instantly became lively and clamorous. In the middle of the auction house, an enchanting woman walked over. This woman was dressed in revealing clothes, and her walking posture was even more provocative as she twisted her waist like a water snake. She looked extremely seductive, and many cultivators couldn't help but be attracted to her. Fellow Taoists, my name is Hong Shan, and I will be hosting this auction. If there is anything wrong with my hosting, please forgive me. Hong Shan's voice was sweet and greasy, causing people to feel numb all over. There were many cultivators below the stage who were not in the VIP seats, and they all stared at Hong Shan with blazing eyes, unable to take their eyes off her. Miss Hong Shan, are you the finale of this auction? Just name your price, and I'll only bid for your moment of spring. Suddenly, a cultivator jeered. Then, the other cultivators followed suit, and the surrounding atmosphere became extremely lively and playful. Hong Shan blinked her beautiful eyes, looked at the cultivator who jeered, and said in a tender voice, "Oh, young master, if you want Hong Shan's moment of spring, just come over and I'll give it to you." As soon as these words came out, the cultivator who jeered swallowed his saliva and involuntarily stepped onto the auction stage. He stared at Hong Shan with infatuation and said, "Miss Hong Shan, you said it, you." Unfortunately, before the cultivator could finish speaking, he took out a dagger and stabbed it at his glabella. Then he screamed and fell off the stage. He quickly pulled out the dagger, and blood spurted out from his glabella. The cultivator clutched his glabella and rolled on the ground, screaming. Obviously, the dagger had injured his divine soul. Chapter 1947. Candle Dragon's Broken Wings. Is there anyone else who wants my daughter's night of passion? Hong Shan giggled, the charm in her beautiful eyes becoming even stronger. Unfortunately, in the eyes of many cultivators below the stage, this smile had turned into the smile of a demon, and no one dared to make a ruckus. Since there's no one else, then my daughter will start the auction. Hong Shan smiled, and with a light clap of her jade-like hand, the first auction item was brought up from the back. It was a crystal the size of a longan. However, Zhuan could feel a surge of divine aura coming from it. Zhuan was very familiar with this aura. It was the aura of a divine stone, but the divine energy within this crystal was too vast, countless times greater than all the divine stone on him combined. This is high-grade divine stone? Zhuan narrowed his eyes and immediately recognized the aura of this crystal. He had both low-grade divine stone and mid-grade divine stone on him, and this divine stone had an even denser aura than the two divine stone on him. It was either a high-grade divine stone or a top-grade divine stone. However, a top-grade divine stone was too rare. Zhuan did not believe that a top-grade divine stone would be auctioned off in a mere auction, so he guessed that this was a high-grade divine stone. This is a high-grade divine stone. There are a total of 10 high-grade divine stone in this auction. The starting price is 100,000 low-grade divine stone, and each bid is at least 5,000 divine stone. Hongshan laughed. The moment the high-grade divine stone was taken out, Zhuan immediately decided to bid for this high-grade divine stone. The transformation of the heavenly armor star required divine stone, and the higher the quality of the divine stone, the greater the transformation of the heavenly armor star. However, the starting price of this high-grade divine stone was also out of Zhuan's expectations. It actually required 100,000 low-grade divine senses. This was a bit too much. 110,000. 120,000. Not long after, the price of this high-grade divine stone had already soared to 300,000. This soaring momentum was extremely fierce. Zhuan frowned. He did not expect the price of the high-grade divine stone to soar so quickly. Although he had a lot of divine stone on him, he did not have many either. After spending 300,000 to buy the star map and taking out some divine stone to transform the heavenly armor star, he only had about 900,000 low-grade divine stone on him. When the price reached 700,000, the number of people bidding decreased significantly. When it reached 800,000, there were only a few people bidding. 900,000. Zhuan immediately added 100,000 lower-grade divine stone, and when he finished speaking, the surrounding people immediately quieted down, obviously not planning to continue bidding. After all, spending 1 million lower-grade divine stone to buy 10 upper-grade divine stone was actually a loss. When the maid handed over the 10 high-grade divine stones to Zhuan straightforwardly paid the 900,000 high-grade divine stones, and the divine stones on his body had already run out. If I want to auction something now, will the Jiang Hong Trading Company do it? Zhuan suddenly asked the maid. The maid was startled, and she said respectfully, "Esteemed guest, this is possible, but the item you are auctioning must be precious enough. Otherwise, Lord Sequoia will not stop the auction and come over to help you auction something." Zhuan nodded and immediately transmitted a message to the maidservant. Immediately, the maidservant's expression changed. She hurriedly said, "This item is indeed precious. I have to report it to Master Hongshan." With that, the maid hurriedly left the VIP seats. Zhuan sat quietly. He planned to auction the fire spirit juice. This thing could not only increase the chances of a heavenly god advancing to a true god, but it also had another effect, which was to increase a cultivator's comprehension for a short period of time. Although it was only for a short period of time, to those cultivators who had encountered bottlenecks in their cultivation, this short period of increase in comprehension had unimaginable benefits. This was because they could rely on the increased comprehension to completely break through the bottleneck. It could be said that the preciousness of the fire spirit juice was innumerable. Zhuan did not believe that Sequoia would not be moved. As expected, not long after the maid left, Sequoia stopped the auction and then excitedly rushed to the box where Zhuan was. Sequoia's behavior naturally attracted the attention of many cultivators to Zhuan's box. They knew that usually, when the auctioneer temporarily stopped the auction, there must be an esteemed guest auctioning a precious item. Inside the box, Sequoia looked at Zhuan with a smile and said coquettishly, "Esteemed guest, do you really have the fire spirit juice on you?" Zhuan smiled slightly, and then took out half a barrel of fire spirit juice from his spirit ring and placed it in front of Sequoia. Sequoia looked at Sequoia Mountain, and her beautiful eyes were filled with shock. This was the first time she had seen so much fire spirit juice. She looked up and down at the young man in front of her. This person's aura was only at the late stage of the heavenly god realm, but he could possess so much fire spirit juice. He must have many secrets on him. However, these were the secrets of their guests, and their trading company would not ask too much about them. Sequoia's smile grew wider and wider, and her limpid eyes looked at Zhuan with even more charm. She came to Zhuowen's side, almost sticking to Zhuowen's body, and said coquettishly, "Esteemed guest, can you sell this half-barrel of fire spirit juice to our Jianghong Trading Company? We will definitely give you a satisfactory price." Zhuowen looked indifferently at the seductive Hongshan in front of him and said, "What price can your company offer me?" Sequoia Mountain chuckled and said, 5 million divine stones. Are you satisfied with this price?" Zhuowen sneered in his heart. Although he did not know the value of this half-barrel of fire spirit juice, he knew that it was definitely more than 5 million divine stones. This Sequoia Mountain was trying to scam him. Hee, I still want to try putting it up for auction," Zhuowen said indifferently. Sequoia Mountain's brows furrowed, but they quickly smoothed out. She twisted her slender waist and climbed onto Zhuowen's chair. Her breath smelled like orchids, and her limpid eyes were watery. She said coquettishly, "Esteemed guest, are you still not satisfied with this price? Then what do you want me to do?" At this point, Sequoia Mountain's soft breasts almost touched Zhuowen's chest. Zhuowen was stunned. This Sequoia Mountain actually used a charm technique on him. She must be tired of living. Zhuowen snorted coldly, and he secretly activated all being formless, and an illusion technique was released from the depths of his eyes. Sequoia Mountain took a few steps back, and her beautiful eyes looked at the young man in front of her with shock. She had indeed used a charm technique on Zhuowen just now. Originally, she thought that it would be an easy task. After all, he was only a late-stage heavenly god cultivator. However, she soon realized that she was wrong. Not only did this young man break through her charm technique, he even backfired on her. "Miss Sequoia Mountain, what's wrong?" Zhuowen pretended to be shocked and asked. Sequoia Mountain smiled awkwardly and said, "I'm fine. Since you want to put it up for auction, I'll naturally do as you say. I'll take my leave now." After saying that, Sequoia Mountain put away the half-barrel of fire spirit juice and left the private room. After Sequoia Mountain left, Zhuowen's lips curled into a cold smile. It looked like the Jianghong Trading Company was not that fair. If he hadn't cultivated all being formless, he might not have been able to resist her charm technique. Sequoia Mountain went up on stage again, and the auction continued. Zhuowen did not bid on the following items as he was not interested in them. Moreover, he did not have many divine stones on him. The next item is a divine item that a previous guest wanted to put up for auction. Not only can this divine item increase the chances of a heavenly god advancing to a true god, but it can also increase a true god's comprehension for a short period of time, allowing them to break through bottlenecks. Sequoia Mountain's words immediately attracted the attention of the bidding cultivators. Some of the cultivators had already guessed the next item, and all of them revealed fiery expressions. The instant the half-barrel of fire spirit juice was placed on the auction stage, the surroundings fell silent. Many cultivators even gulped. "This is half a barrel of fire spirit juice. I believe everyone knows about this item, so I won't waste any more time. The starting bid for this item is 1 million divine stones, and each bid must not be lower than 100,000 divine stones." Sequoia Mountain smiled. Zhuowen, who was sitting in the private room, laughed coldly. The starting bid for this half-barrel of fire spirit juice was 1 million divine stones. If it was put up for auction, the price would definitely not be lower than 10 million. Sequoia Mountain actually wanted to buy this half-barrel of fire spirit juice from him for 5 million divine stones. She was really greedy. 1,100,000. 1,500,000. As soon as the fire spirit juice was placed on the stage, the price soared rapidly. In an instant, it soared to 5 million divine stones, and the momentum of the price did not decrease. Soon, the price broke through 10 million divine stones, and then it rose to 15 million divine stones. However, after 15 million divine stones, the bidding voices decreased significantly. It was obvious that the price was high enough. 20 million. A crisp voice rang out from one of the private rooms. Instantly, no one made a bid. 20 million divine stones was obviously not something an ordinary person could bid. Zhuowen was also slightly shocked. He did not expect that this half-barrel of fire spirit juice could be sold for so many divine stones. It was really unexpected. At the same time, he thought about the pool of fire spirit juice that Xiao He had used to bathe in. He knew that the value of that pool was immeasurable. Of course, if others found out that he had the pool of fire spirit juice, he would definitely be hunted down by countless true gods. Even Void Sky Almighty experts might not care about their reputation and come to snatch it. After the half-barrel of fire spirit juice was auctioned, a servant girl brought 19 million divine stones and handed it to Jun. Juan knew that the remaining 1 million divine stones should have been taken by the trading firm. After all, there was a handling fee for auctioning things. There was no other way. Not long after the fire spirit juice's popularity died down, another divine object appeared in the auction house, causing a complete uproar. Ladies and gentlemen, this object is a remnant wing of the torch dragon. The great master of the Jianghong trading firm, Lord Wu Han, accidentally obtained it in the dangerous Sunset Valley. There is no need for Sequoia Mountain to explain the torch dragon's reputation. Everyone should know about it. In the private room, Zhuan stood up abruptly with an excited expression. He did not expect to encounter the torch dragon wing in this auction. Although it was only a remnant wing, it was enough to help him cultivate the torch dragon nine-headed infants. This object must be auctioned at all costs. Zhuan clenched his fists, and his eyes were filled with coldness. The reserve price of the remnant wing of the torch dragon is 2 million divine stones, and each bid must not be lower than 100,000, Sequoia Mountain said with a smile. Chapter 1948. Qiyun's Celestial Soil, 5 million divine stones. I want this torch dragon remnant wing. As soon as Hong Shan started bidding, a powerful voice immediately increased the price by 4 million, raising the price to 5 million. 6 million. However, this domineering voice did not scare anyone. Another voice drowned out this domineering voice. It was neither salty nor light. 6,500,000. 7 million. The bidding became more and more heated, but Zhuan did not bid. Instead, he waited silently. He knew very well that it was useless to join the bidding now. It was better to wait until later. When the price broke through 10 million, the bidding voice obviously decreased a lot. 15 million. Zhuan instantly increased the price by 5 million, which immediately shocked many cultivators in the auction house. However, it only lasted for a while. The domineering voice from before spoke again. I've said it before. I, Hao Tianyuan, want this torch dragon remnant wing. I'm offering 16 million. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? As soon as Hao Tianyuan said this, many cultivators in the surroundings gasped. Obviously, Hao Tianyuan's reputation was not small. Otherwise, it would be impossible for so many cultivators to show such a surprised expression. 20 million. Suddenly, a cold voice instantly increased the price by 4 million, completely ignoring Hao Tianyuan's name. Hao Tianyuan's face froze, and his eyes turned gloomy. He did not expect that there would still be people bidding after he announced his name. This was really arrogant and conceited. Zhuan frowned slightly. He did not expect the price of this torch dragon remnant wing to rise so quickly. 20 million had already exceeded the sum of all the divine stones he had. However, Zhuan did not want to give up this torch dragon remnant wing because this item was specially prepared for him to cultivate the torch dragon 9-in. Once he could cultivate the torch dragon 9-in with this torch dragon remnant wing, his speed would probably be unparalleled below the Void Sky realm. Even a Void Sky Almighty expert might not necessarily be faster than him. Thinking of this, Zhuan shook the bell in the box. This bell was used temporarily for emergencies. It was mainly used to raise money for the auction. Not long after, a beautiful woman entered Zhuan's box. I need a large amount of divine stones. How many divine stones do you plan to pay for this barrel of fire spirit juice? Zhuan took out an entire barrel of fire spirit juice without hesitation. The beautiful woman was dumbfounded. She never thought that Zhuan would have so much fire spirit juice on him. She knew that the VIP in this room had already auctioned off half a barrel of fire spirit juice. Please wait a moment, I need to ask my superior. The beautiful woman immediately took out a jade talisman and inquired inside. She then said to Zhuan, "Esteemed guest, our company is willing to pay 30 million god stones for your fire spirit juice." Zhuan narrowed his eyes. Just now, half a barrel of fire spirit juice was auctioned off for 20 million. Now that he had taken out a barrel of fire spirit juice, the Jianghong Trading Company was auctioning it off for 30 million. This was too much. However, Zhuan also knew that this was not an auction, so he nodded and agreed to the price. After the transaction was completed, the price of the torch dragon wings had already broken the 30 million mark. The only bidders left were Hao Tianyuan and the cold voice. 31 million. Hao Tianyuan gritted his teeth. This was already close to the limit of the divine stones he had. He did not believe that the cold voice would continue to bid. Sure enough, after Hao Tianyuan called out this price, the cold voice no longer spoke. Hao Tianyuan also let out a light breath, and the corner of his mouth revealed a trace of a smile. 1 million is too stingy. I'll pay 35 million. Hao Tianyuan originally thought that no one would bid, but suddenly, the cultivator in the box who had been silent suddenly increased the price. This caused Hao Tianyuan's face to freeze. "You?" Hao Tianyuan was furious. His divine sense violently swept toward Zhuowen's box, but unfortunately, it was blocked outside. "What about me? If you have divine stones, go ahead and add," Zhuowen said sarcastically. Hao Tianyuan suppressed his anger and said in a low muffled voice, 35 million, 40 million. However, Zhuowen sneered and immediately increased the bid to 40 million. Hao Tianyuan was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He only had a total of 40 million divine level stones on him, and he could not take out any more to compete with Zhuowen. "Don't let me know who you are," Hao Tianyuan said coldly as he looked at Zhuowen's box. "Idiot! You don't have the money, yet you're still pretending in front of me." Zhuowen was not afraid of Hao Tianyuan's threat. He planned to leave this place after obtaining the Torch Dragon Remnant Wing. Then he would use the All-Life Formless to hide temporarily and prepare to cultivate the Torch Dragon 9 Infants technique. As for the final level 7 Divine Pill, Zhuowen did not plan to bid for it. Not to mention whether he had enough Divine Stones, the level 7 Divine Pill alone would probably cause a Void Sky Almighty to bid for it. He did not want to be involved in such a dispute. Although the Torch Dragon Remnant Wing was precious, it was not enough to attract the attention of a Void Sky Almighty. However, the level 7 Divine Pill was different. Hao Tianyuan's aura was quite strong, but it was only at the level of a 2 calamities true god. Therefore, he did not take Hao Tianyuan's threat seriously. In a private room not far away, Hao Tianyuan suddenly slammed his fist on the table. His gaze was cold as he stared at Zhuowen's private room. However, he did not continue to ridicule Zhuowen. Instead, killing intent rose in his heart. He decided that no matter what, he would kill this reckless cultivator. The next item is called the Scarlet Cloud Immortal Soil. This is not ordinary soil. It is said that this soil once cultivated a level 7 divine medicine. It contains the aura of a level 7 divine medicine. I don't think I need to explain how precious this item is. Hong Shan chuckled and continued, the starting price of this item is 1 million divine stones. The increment must not be less than 10,000 divine stones. Zhuowen looked at the palm-sized soil and was even more surprised. He did not expect this soil to have cultivated a level 7 divine medicine. Coincidentally, he also remembered the withered level 7 divine medicine he obtained from the fiery cloud domain. If he obtained the Qiyun Celestial Land and used the Celestial Land to cultivate the withered level 7 divine medicine, would it be possible for it to be reborn? Zhuowen's eyes blazed with desire. However, the following bidding made Zhuowen flinch. The price of the Scarlet Cloud Immortal Soil quickly broke through the 10 million mark. 20 million divine stones. Hao Tianyun suddenly increased the price by 10 million. Instantly, there was complete silence. Although the Scarlet Cloud Immortal Soil was rare, it was only the size of a palm. 20 million divine stones was actually a little expensive. Therefore, many cultivators gave up bidding. In the end, the Scarlet Cloud Immortal Soil was obtained by Hao Tianyun. Zhuowen silently glanced at Hao Tianyun, who had won the bid for the Scarlet Cloud Immortal Soil. His eyes flickered, but he got up and left the box. Since he couldn't obtain the Scarlet Cloud Immortal Soil, he could only give it up. In the future, he could look for soil similar to the Scarlet Cloud Immortal Soil and use it to cultivate level 6 and level 7 divine medicine. As soon as Zhuan left the box, the maid in Hao Tianyun's box came in and said to Hao Tianyun, "Lord Hao, that person has left the box." Hao Tianyun's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He said coldly, "My Hao Tianyun's, things aren't that easy to take." With that, Hao Tianyun left the box. The moment Hao Tianyun left the box, the auctioneer, Hong Shan, laughed and retreated behind the scenes. Another woman took over as the auctioneer. To be able to take out a barrel and a half of spirit juice, that esteemed guest is really rich. Our Jiang Hong Trading Company must treat him well. In the darkness, Hong Shan twisted her slender waist as she left the trading company. Behind her, a figure with a terrifying aura followed closely. In another box not far from Hao Tianyun, a black-clothed man with a cold expression gently stroked the hilt of the sword at his waist. Then he got up and left the box. The moment Zhuan left the trading company, 3 powerful divine consciousnesses locked onto him. Zhuan's gaze froze and he sneered in his heart. He immediately took out the Thunder Fire Sword and flew out of Fansha City with a swoosh. He, Zhuan, wasn't someone who could be bullied easily. Since they had their eyes on him, they had to be prepared to be killed. Zhuan's speed wasn't slow, but it wasn't fast either. Very soon he was out of Fansha City. When he reached a place where there was no one, an air-piercing sound came and pierced toward his back. Zhuan twisted his waist and the Thunder Fire Sword moved to the side. He dodged the air-piercing weapon behind him. Your reaction isn't bad. Originally, I thought it was some powerful real god who was bidding against me. I didn't expect it to be an ant in the late heavenly god realm. A cold voice could be heard. Zhuan turned around and looked at the middle-aged man in blue. He knew that this man should be Hao Tianyuan. Hao Tianyuan's aura was extremely strong. His body had a dense aura of thunder and fire. This was a sign that he had passed through a thunder disaster and fire disaster. He knew that this person was a 2 calamities real god. However, the aura of Hao Tianyuan's thunder disaster and fire disaster wasn't strong. He probably hadn't passed through these 2 disasters many times. He could be considered a normal 2 calamities real god. But, as a real god, you want to snatch the descendant of a mere heavenly god like me? Zhuan said coldly. Hao Tianyuan laughed and said, "Are you afraid? It's a pity that even if you kneel down and beg for mercy now, you still have to die. Because you have offended me, Hao Tianyuan. From the moment you insulted me, you were a dead man." "Idiot," Zhuan said indifferently. Hao Tianyuan's face froze. He looked at Zhuan with a gloomy gaze and said, "What did you say? You actually insulted me again. Do you not want to live anymore?" "Idiot, didn't you say that I would definitely die? Since I'm going to die anyway, I might as well call you an idiot. Moreover, I feel that this term suits you very well," Zhuan said sarcastically. Hao Tianyuan was completely enraged. He took out an axe and plunged it toward Zhuan. At the same time, the aura of thunder disaster and fire disaster on Hao Tianyuan's body instantly became violent, causing Hao Tianyuan to be wrapped in a shadow of thunder and fire. Zhuan glanced around casually. With his powerful senses of the soul, he immediately discovered that there were 3 other presences hidden in the surroundings. However, the 3 presences were hidden in the void, silently observing everything. Bang! Zhuan held the Thunder Fire Sword and blocked slightly. Then, he spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. His face was extremely pale. An ant will always be an ant. It's really not worth mentioning. Hao Tianyuan's gaze was filled with disdain. He carried the axe and continued to chase after Zhuan. He wanted to kill this cultivator completely and take his spiritual ring. Chapter 1949. Snatch. However, just as Hao Tianyun's axe was about to hit Zhuan's body, a black blade and a red satin suddenly appeared from the clouds and knocked the axe away. Bang! Zhuan fell to the ground. His face was pale and blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth. The aura on his body was faint, as though he would die at any time. Hao Tianyun looked at Juan, who was lying on the ground. He knew that Juan would not live for long. The fact that Juan did not die under his axe meant that Juan was quite powerful. After all, Hao Tianyun was a true god of two disasters, while Juan's aura was only at the later stage of the heavenly god realm. The difference between the two of them was too big. To Hao Tianyun, such an ant could be killed with one finger. However, Hao Tianyun's attention was no longer on Juan but on the void in front of him. He said coldly, "Are the three of you done hiding? Why don't you come out?" Just as Hao Tianyun finished his sentence, the void in front of him split open and a cold man in black walked out. The man in black clenched his right hand, and the black blade that was originally used to attack the axe was held in his hand. "It's really, you lost to me in the bidding and now you want to snatch it?" Hao Tianyun said sarcastically. "This man has many secrets, but I only want the wings of the serpent dragon. Give it to me and everything on him will belong to you. Moreover, I will help you chase away the other two people," the man in black said calmly. In the hole, Yuan lifted his head and looked at the man in black silently. From the moment the man spoke, he knew that he was the owner of the cold voice who had bid for the wings of the serpent dragon at the auction. As for the other two people, they were Hong Shan from the Jiang Hong Trading Company and an elder that Yuan did not know. Hao Tianyun furrowed his brows. Just as he was hesitating, Hong Shan's coquettish voice rang out, "The two of you, aren't you treating me like an outsider? I'm just a weak girl. What right do I have to fight with you?" Two figures slowly walked out of the void above the clouds. One of them was a woman with a graceful figure. She was none other than Hong Shan, who had previously hosted the auction in the Jiang Hong Trading Company. Following behind her was an expressionless gray-robed elder. Hong Shan's aura was not strong. She was probably a true god of one disasters. However, the elder in a gray, true god of two disasters like Hao Tianyun. Moreover, the aura of the elder in a gray, the aura of the lightning and fire was of lightning and fire. The elder in a gray's light, lightning and fire. The elder in gray's two. Fire and fire to fire two's two disasters. Hao Tianyun's. Was his god in a gray, he, Tianyun's eyes as his to god to studio two's to the studio to his studio and in studio nida. To his studio to yang. To the side on. To of Hong to the ground to. Hong Yen. Was gray was. She smiled and said, "The two of you, can you give me some face? This person is very important to me. If the two of you give him to me, I will be very grateful." As she said that, Hong Shan's eyes were filled with charm. Her eyes were misty and she gave off an extremely enchanting aura. The black-robed man and Hao Tianyun were stunned. However, they quickly came back to their senses. The two of them were cursing Hong Shan in their hearts. She had actually used her charm on the two of them. However, even though Sequoia's seduction techniques were very powerful, and she appeared to be very open, she was actually a pure and honest person. Up until now, no one had taken advantage of her in any way. Moreover, Hong Shan's background in the Jiang Hong Trading Company was not low. Although there were many experts in Fansha City who coveted Hong Shan's beauty, it was a pity that no one succeeded. Most of the men were fooled by her. "Miss Hong Shan, your words are a little too much. This kid doesn't know what's good for him. He snatched what we needed. He has some grudges with us. However, you have no grudges with this kid. Why do you want us to give him to you instead of you giving him to us?" Hao Tianyun said with a fake smile. Hong Shan chuckled. Her laughter was as clear as silver bells. She did not mind Hao Tianyun's sarcastic remarks. "Ah, then there's no other way. Uncle Zhang, I'll leave these two to you. I'll take this kid with me." Hong Shan chuckled and landed lightly beside Juan. Hao Tianyun and the black-robed man's faces changed slightly. Just as they moved towards Hong Shan, they were stopped in midair by the gray-robed elder. "Get lost!" Hao Tianyun shouted coldly. The divine axe in his right hand blasted out. Terrifying murderous runes intertwined and spread out in all directions. It was as if the surroundings were about to collapse. The gray-robed elder was silent. However, his hands did not slow down in the slightest. He pulled out the gray trident and threw it out. Instantly, gray gas spread out and formed a gray sea that stretched as far as the eye could see. A monstrous gray tsunami surged from the surface of this gray sea. It came crashing down and actually forced the divine axe to retreat continuously. Even Hao Tianyun let out a muffled groan and was forced to retreat continuously. "Why aren't you helping me?" Hao Tianyun shouted at the black-robed man not far away. The black-robed man understood and immediately took out a black sharp blade. The black sharp blade was like a crescent moon in the night sky. In an instant, it shuttled through the void. Its speed was frightening. Bang! With the black-robed man's help, the gray-robed elder was instantly stabilized. However, it was a pity that the gray-robed elder was too strong. Although Hao Tianyun and the black-robed man had teamed up, they were still suppressed by the gray-robed elder. The battle between the three real gods was extremely intense. The battle of the real god weapons and the collision of strong divine powers created a dazzling radiance in the void. Hong Shan came before Zhuowen and squatted down gently. Her beautiful eyes sized up Zhuowen, who was in a severely injured state. She smiled and said, "Esteemed guest, to be able to take out a bucket and a half of fire spirit juice in one go, you are not an ordinary rich person." As she spoke, Hong Shan extended her slender hands and played with Zhuowen's chest gently. It was as if she was teasing Zhuowen. The teasing look in Hong Shan's eyes became more intense. "You look very young. You are the first Empyrean god I have ever seen who is so rich." As she spoke, Hong Shan's hand suddenly landed on Zhuowen's face. Her beautiful face slowly moved closer to Zhuowen's face. The seductive look on her face became even more intense. It was like autumn water that made people want to pinch her face in their hands and rub it fiercely. "I am very unhappy. When we were in the private room, you actually broke my seduction technique. It seems like you are quite capable. However, I don't believe that you can still resist my seduction technique when you are already in such a state." Hong Shan giggled and exhaled. The hot air that she breathed on Zhuowen's face was soft and moist. It was filled with unimaginable temptation. Hong Shan could clearly feel Zhuowen's fiery aura in front of her. A trace of pride rose in her heart. The unhappiness that she felt when she was ignored by Zhuowen in the private room suddenly disappeared. "It's time to take this kid's spiritual ring. I wonder how much fire spirit juice is left in his spiritual ring." Hong Shan thought to herself. Her hand reached towards the spiritual ring on Zhuowen's right hand. She wanted to take the spiritual ring on Zhuowen's right hand. She knew very well that Zhuowen was only a god. He had a great need for fire spirit juice. However, this kid could take out a bucket and a half of fire spirit juice to auction. This meant that he still had a lot of fire spirit juice on him. However, the moment her hand reached for Zhuowen's right hand, she found that Zhuowen's right hand suddenly grabbed her hand. Then, Zhuowen's left hand wrapped around Hong Shan's slender waist with lightning speed. Hong Shan let out a soft cry. Just as she was about to break free, she discovered that the hand was like an iron hoop, firmly holding onto her. Then, with a sudden force, Hong Shan was brought over to Zhuowen, face to face. "You are courting death." Hong Shan's face reddened. It was the first time she had been taken advantage of by a man. She was enraged. The god power in her body surged as she tried to break free from Zhuowen. However, Hong Shan soon realized that something was wrong. Even though the god power in her body was surging, she still couldn't break free from Zhuowen's embrace. "Miss Hong Shan, it's you who is taking advantage of me, okay?" Zhuowen looked at Hong Shan mockingly. He quietly released Devour's innate ability, Purgatory. Countless refined souls flew out, absorbing the god power in Hong Shan's body. Soon Hong Shan felt powerless. At the same time, Zhuowen used his powerful god power to create a terrifying confining force, locking Hong Shan in this confining force. Then he put Hong Shan into the spiritual ring and jumped up, leaving this place quickly. "Miss!" The moment Zhuowen put Hong Shan away, the gray-robed old man, who was fighting with Hao Tianyun and the black-clothed man, was enraged. He stomped his right foot and shot out like an arrow, chasing after Zhuowen. Bang! Hao Tianyun and the black-clothed man couldn't help but take a few steps back. Looking at the gray-robed old man, their eyes twinkled as they followed him. At the same time, Hao Tianyun was secretly surprised. He didn't expect that Juan could run away so fast, even though he had severely injured him. As for Hong Shan, although he didn't pay much attention to her, he knew that she had gone too far, which gave Juan a chance to capture her. He didn't think that Juan was strong enough to take Hong Shan away. The powerful soul consciousness fell on Juan like a tide, locking him down. Juan furrowed his brows. He didn't expect the gray-robed old man to be so fast. Apparently, this old man wasn't an ordinary two-disaster true god. Hand over, miss, and I'll leave your corpse intact. The gray-robed old man's eyes were cold as he shouted at Juan. Juan sneered. Looking at the gray-robed old man, he wasn't afraid. Die. When the gray-robed elder was within reach of Juan, the gray-robed elder slammed his palm towards Juan's back. Juan's right foot was instantly suffused with a purple aura as he used 4 layers of purple aura. His speed instantly changed and he flew in the opposite direction. The gray-robed elder's attack naturally missed. You're coming towards us. You're courting death. Hao Tianyun saw Juan plunging towards them and he sneered. He immediately took out his axe and swung it at Juan. As for the black-clothed man, he stopped not far away and didn't take any action. In his opinion, there was no need for him and Hao Tianyun to team up against a mere late heaven god. However, at the moment when the axe was about to hit Juan, the thunder fire sword in Juan's body plunged out and clashed with the axe. Juan's momentum didn't decrease and he instantly plunged in front of Hao Tianyun. Dark Moon Time. Chapter 1950. Glorious purple galaxy divine sand. Hao Tianyun's eyes bulged as he looked at the lower half of his body in disbelief. He had been too careless. He had always thought that Juan was just an ordinary early heavenly god. He had never thought that Juan would suddenly explode with such power and cut him in half. Explode! Hao Tianyun's reaction was extremely fast. The moment he was cut in half, he came back to his senses and immediately detonated the axe. Hao Tianyun's divine axe was a low-grade true god weapon. When it exploded, the power it produced was not small. It was enough to kill a heavenly god and severely injure an ordinary one-disaster true god. Unfortunately, Juan was not afraid at all. He immediately used heaven and earth everlasting. Waves of golden gas surrounded his body and formed a strong defense. When the energy of the divine axe's explosion completely engulfed Juan, the soul-absorbing god needle between Juan's eyebrows shot out at an extremely fast speed. The moment the soul-absorbing god needle shot out, Juan was also enveloped by the energy of the explosion. Hao Tianyun had never thought that Juan could still attack at this moment, so he did not guard against the soul-absorbing god needle. Puchi. Blood splattered as a bloody hole appeared between Hao Tianyun's eyebrows. The soul-absorbing god needle was messing around in his divine soul, completely destroying it. Rumble. Hao Tianyun was dead, and Juan's fist landed on the explosion, creating a human-sized hole in the explosion. Juan then crawled out and immediately put away Hao Tianyun's spirit ring. He then released his 5th-level Dao intent and instantly disappeared from where he stood. The moment Juan left, the black-robed man also came back to his senses. His body trembled as he stared at Juan, who had disappeared in fear. Hao Tianyun's strength was not much different from his, but he was killed in a few moves. It was unbelievable. Although Hao Tianyun was careless, it was still terrifying because Juan's aura was only at the late heavenly god realm. To a two calamities true god, a late-stage heavenly god was just an ant that could be killed with a wave of his hand. But today the roles were reversed. Hao Tianyun was killed by a late-stage heavenly god ant. It was because of this hesitation that the black-robed man's spiritual sense completely lost track of Juan's figure. You didn't stop that person? At this moment, the gray-robed elder had also rushed to the black-robed man's side. His gaze was extremely cold. That Juan was too cunning. He had actually held back on his movement technique. At the beginning, Juan didn't use his full strength to flee. At the instant the gray-robed old man was about to catch up to him and attack him, Juan suddenly utilized the energy of Dao Insight to raise his speed to the limit and flashed in the opposite direction. Furthermore, the time that Juan and Hao Tianyun exchanged blows was extremely short. It could be said that Jun had taken advantage of Hao Tianyun's carelessness to kill Hao Tianyun in an instant. Even though the gray-robed elder rushed over with all his might, he still lost track of Jun. However, if the black-robed man had locked onto Juan with his spiritual sense from the beginning, the gray-robed elder might not have lost track of him. The black-robed man took a few steps back. Black sharp blades revolved around his body as he looked at the gray-robed elder cautiously. Thinking about how Juan had robbed Sequoia, the gray-robed elder's gaze became extremely gloomy. He stared eerily at the black-robed man and said, "You, that." The gray-robed elder roared furiously and threw the trident at the black-robed man. At this moment, the gray-robed elder attacked with all his might. In an instant, a monstrous gray tsunami surged in the surroundings and came crashing down. The black-robed man's face turned ugly. The power that the gray-robed elder had unleashed at this moment was even stronger than before. The black sharp blades instantly transformed into countless blade shadows. Then, they merged and condensed into a monstrous giant sword shadow that slashed towards the gray tsunami. Unfortunately, the gray tsunami was too powerful. The huge sword image was directly shattered, and the black blade was also shattered. The black-clothed man was sent flying, and he coughed up blood. His eyes were filled with fear. He knew that the gray-robed elder was not a simple two-disaster true god, but he did not expect him to be so strong. How long had this person been in the two-disaster true god realm for him to have such terrifying power? I'll let you die with a clear understanding. I've cultivated for 3,000 years as a two-disaster true god and survived 6 great fires. You're just a one-fire true god. You're just an ant in front of me. The gray-robed elder had appeared above the black-robed man. His right hand formed a claw and pressed in between the black-robed man's eyebrows. With a bang, the black-robed man's eyebrows ruptured. Blood spurted out and his god's soul was completely destroyed. However, his face still maintained that terrified expression. After killing the black-robed man, the gray-robed elder's murderous intent did not disappear. Instead, it grew stronger. At the same time, he was worried. Although Hong Shan looked like an auctioneer of the Jianghong trading firm, he knew that Hong Shan had a high position in the Jianghong trading firm. She was the granddaughter of the owner of the Jianghong trading firm, Wu Han. Moreover, Wu Han doted on Hong Shan. As long as it was a request from Hong Shan, Wu Han would try his best to fulfill it. Now that Hong Shan had been kidnapped by a young man in the late divine realm, if Wu Han knew about it, the gray-robed elder would be in a miserable state. Fortunately, Lord Wu Han is not in the Fansha star. However, Lord Wu Han should be back soon. I have to find that bastard before Lord Wu Han returns. The gray-robed elder's eyes were cold. Then he left the place. He decided to return to the Jianghong trading firm and use the power of the Jianghong trading firm to arrest Zhuowen in the entire Fansha star. He also locked down the Fansha city. Because the teleportation array that connected the Fansha star to the outside world only existed in the Fansha city, if the cultivator wanted to leave the Fansha star, he had to return to the Fansha city. Therefore, the gray-robed elder's first task was to lock down the Fansha city. Back in Fanfin City, Zhuowen's aura and appearance instantly changed into that of a young man with a cold and gloomy expression. Even his aura became gloomy. Even if the gray-robed old man was standing in front of him, he wouldn't be able to recognize the current Zhuowen. After changing his appearance, Nguyen found a random inn and stayed there temporarily. As for Qian and the inn on the other side, Nguyen did not plan to return. He knew very well that once the gray-robed elder returned, he would definitely investigate the inn on Qian's side. Therefore, if he returned, he would be walking into a trap. In the room of the inn, Nguyen waved his sleeve. A black whirlpool appeared and his original body, dressed in white, slowly walked out. His original body's cultivation had increased very quickly. During the time he was cultivating on the illusory sky bridge, his original body's cultivation had constantly improved and had already reached the level of a demigod. It would not be long before he would be able to become a true god. Although Zhuowen's mind power clone had not been preserved after his rebirth, his original body still had the memories of the devouring curse forbidden seal. Moreover, when his original body was cultivating on the illusory heavenly bridge, he had been using the fire spirit juice all the time, so his comprehension was always at an unimaginable level. Therefore, when his original body began to cultivate the devouring curse forbidden art again, he immediately cultivated it to perfection. At the same time, his original body had also become a heaven saint master and was not far from becoming a celestial saint master. Although it was difficult to start from the beginning, Nguyen had the foundation and experience of a profound saint master. Although his mind power clone had been destroyed before his rebirth, causing Zhuowen's mind power cultivation to fall short of success, he still had his foundation. In addition to the effects of the illusory sky bridge and the fire spirit juice, Zhuowen's cultivation of the devouring curse forbidden seal was naturally not slow. His mind power also increased very quickly. Zhuowen's gaze was calm. He landed in the room and began to set up a powerful formation in the room with the devouring curse forbidden seal. The devouring curse forbidden seal's characteristics were to devour and absorb. If someone broke in, Zhuowen would immediately know. After setting up the formation, Nguyen returned to devour space. Zhuowen first took out Hao Tianyun's spirit ring. There were only about 20 million divine stones left in Hao Tianyun's spirit ring. Zhuowen was most concerned about the scarlet cloud celestial soil that Hao Tianyun had won. Apart from that, there were some miscellaneous items in Hao Tianyun's spirit ring. Although there were some divine herbs, they were much worse than the ones Zhuowen had obtained in the fiery cloud territory. However, Nguyen still put them away. When Zhuowen moved all the items in Hao Tianyun's spirit ring into his own spirit ring, he suddenly noticed a bright spot. Zhuowen took the bright spot and found that it was a thumb-sized stone. This stone exuded a metallic texture and felt heavy in his hand. Zhuowen immediately knew that this stone was not simple. When he used his soul consciousness to investigate this stone, he found that his soul consciousness had been devoured by this stone. Devouring soul consciousness? Zhuowen's eyes widened in surprise as he muttered in disbelief. Oh, isn't this the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand? The thunder fire sword instantly flew out. Xiao He sat on the sword's hilt, looking at the small stone in Zhuowen's hand in surprise. Xiao He, do you know this thing? Zhuowen asked with a frown. Xiao He chuckled and said, in the inheritance of the thunder fire sword, I know many refining materials like the back of my hand. I only learned about this glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand after I inherited the memories of the thunder fire sword. This thing is not simple. Boy, the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand is extremely rare and is an extremely powerful refining material. If you refine this glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand into a divine sword, the divine sword will have the terrifying effect of severing soul consciousness. Unfortunately, the amount of glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand you have now is too little. It's only the size of a thumb. Speaking of this, Xiao He shook his head and felt that it was a pity. Then can I use this glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand into my soul-absorbing god needle? After learning about the miraculous effects of the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand, Zhuowen's eyes shone brightly. It could be said that this glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand was prepared for his soul-absorbing god needle. Once the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand was integrated into the soul-absorbing god needle, the soul-absorbing god needle would not need to directly enter the soul space of a cultivator. As long as it touched the cultivator's soul consciousness, it would most likely be able to injure the cultivator's soul that was connected to the soul consciousness. Yes, you can give me the soul-absorbing god needle. The inheritance of the thunder fire sword is not only the cultivation method, but also the powerful refining method. Xiao He patted his chest and said. Chapter 1951. Sealed City. The scarlet cloud celestial soil was as red as fire. It felt warm and soft in his hand. In particular, Nguyen was moved by the surging divine power contained in the scarlet cloud celestial soil. He had never seen such divine power before. I wonder if the scarlet cloud celestial soil can really revive a withered level 7 divine herb? Zhuowen's eyes flickered as he took out a withered, black divine herb from his spiritual ring. It was called the Dragon King grass. He carefully removed the scarlet cloud celestial soil and then planted the roots of the Dragon King grass into the soil. Zhuowen did not know if it was an illusion, but he found that the withered Dragon King grass gave off a trace of vitality the moment it was planted in the scarlet cloud celestial soil. It seems to be effective. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He observed for a while and found that the vitality of the Dragon King grass was gradually reviving. However, the speed of revival was extremely slow, like a snail moving forward. Zhuowen looked for a while and then put away the Dragon King grass. He knew that the Dragon King grass was completely withered and it would take a long time to revive it. After putting away the Dragon King grass, Zhuowen took out the torch dragon wings and stared at them with a burning gaze. He knew very well that with the torch dragon wings, he could practice the torch dragon nine-headed infant technique. Zhuowen opened his mouth and spat out the divine fire in his dantian. The divine fire completely enveloped the torch dragon wings and completely refined them. The first step of the torch dragon nine infants required the cultivator to refine the dragon wings. Then, through the secret technique of the torch dragon nine infants, they would use their own star god power to nurture 9 torch dragon larvae. Jiao-ing meant 9 torch dragon larvae. As for the 9 torch dragon larvae, they would attach themselves to the dragon wings. With torch dragon strength, they would soar into the 9 heavens and shake the firmament. As the cultivator continued to practice, the 9 infant torch dragons attached to the dragon wings would gradually grow and the speed of the cultivator would increase exponentially with the growth of the dragon wings. Zhuowen spent half a month to barely refine the remnant wings of the torch dragon. The divine fire carried the torch dragon's wings and slowly approached Yun. Then, it landed behind Zhuowen. The bones of the torch dragon's wings had completely fused with Zhuowen's spine. Zhuowen even had a feeling that the dragon wings were innate. Zhuowen even had a heroic feeling. As long as he gently flapped the wings on his back, he would be able to soar through the 9 heavens and roam freely. The only flaw was that the torch dragon remnant wings were incomplete and could not fully unleash the speed of torch dragon 9-headed infants. However, it was still much faster than Zhuowen's current speed. On the torch dragon wings, 9 dragon whelps were constantly circling around, looking very cheerful. Zhuowen knew very well that these 9 dragon whelps were the energy source that powered the torch dragon wings. With a thought, the torch dragon wings slowly shrank and finally merged into Zhuowen's back. Speaking of which, the torch dragon wings were similar to the tempest wings derived from the tempest's sacred talisman. However, the torch dragon wings were illusory wings derived from a void heaven mystique and contained extremely powerful starry sky laws. The tempest wings, on the other hand, were far inferior to the torch dragon wings. Naturally, its speed could not be compared to the torch dragon wings. After refining the torch dragon wings, Zhuowen was in a good mood and immediately summoned Sequoia, who had been imprisoned, from his spirit ring. At this moment, Hongshan was glaring at Zhuowen with her beautiful eyes. If not for the fact that she was imprisoned and unable to move, she would have pounced on Zhuowen and bitten him. Miss Hongshan, a straightforward person does not resort to insinuations. I have something to ask you. You'd better cooperate. Zhuowen said indifferently. Immediately, he released the gag on Hongshan's mouth and let her speak. You've got guts. Do you know who I am? If you let me go now, you'll have a chance to live. Otherwise, you'll definitely die, Hongshan said through gritted teeth. Zhuowen sized up Hongshan in astonishment. In fact, when Hongshan brought a 2 calamities true god, he already knew that this woman's position in the Jianghong trading firm wasn't low. So what? Aren't you still in my hands now? Zhuowen said nonchalantly. Hongshan sneered and said, The ignorant are truly fearless. Do you know the owner of the Jianghong trading firm? His name is Wu Han. Although I usually address him as Lord Wu Han, he's actually my grandfather. Zhuowen was stunned. He didn't expect Hongshan to be the granddaughter of the Jianghong trading firm's owner. He had heard from Qian that Wu Han was extremely powerful. He was a void sky realm existence. In addition, he was the founder of the Jianghong trading firm. He was extremely famous on the Brahma Star. Hongshan also saw the astonishment on Zhuowen's face. The coldness at the corner of her mouth became even more intense. She said complacently, "Since you know my background, you still dare to be so impudent with me? Although you're strong, you're only a heavenly god. How can you be a match for a Void Sky Realm expert?" Zhuan looked at Hongshan calmly and said indifferently, "Are you done?" Hongshan was stunned and subconsciously nodded. However, she quickly said angrily, "Didn't you hear what I said? I have a Void Sky expert behind me. How dare you treat me like this?" "And, I know. So what?" Zhuan said coldly. Hongshan was stunned. She stared at Zhuan and found that he really didn't put her background in his eyes. She felt dejected. "I have something to ask you. If you answer me honestly, I won't continue to touch you. However, if you don't cooperate, I don't think I won't act recklessly." After saying that, Zhuan's gaze impudently sized up Hongshan's body. Hongshan's face was filled with shame and anger. Although she was extremely charming in the eyes of outsiders and appeared to be passionate and open, in reality, no man had ever touched her body in all these years, and no one had been as impudent as Zhuan. After all, her identity caused many cultivators who had designs on her to shrink back at the sight of her. After this period of contact, Hongshan knew Zhuan's character. He was definitely someone who would do what he said. She was very confident in her charm. If Zhuan really did something to her, she wouldn't be able to do anything. After all, she was now a fish on the chopping block while Zhuan was a knife. "Ask away." After this period of contact, Hongshan more or less understood the character of the young man in front of her. She knew that it was impossible to scare him and could only do as he said. "I remember that your Jianghong Trading Company caught a girl named Xiao Tong. Where are you keeping her?" Zhuan asked indifferently. "Who is she to you?" Hongshan asked subconsciously. However, she quickly found that her question was a little inappropriate. Her cheeks turned red and she quickly changed her question. "Why are you asking about her?" Zhuan didn't care about Hongshan's strange behavior and said indifferently, "She is a friend I met on the road. Just answer me honestly." Hongshan frowned. Under Zhuan's sharp gaze, she sighed and said, "She and the people from the Crepe Myrtle sect were not imprisoned in the Jianghong Trading Company. They were taken away by Song Ling of the Song family of Song Rinqing. And this time, it was the Song family who asked our Jianghong Trading Company to deal with the Crepe Myrtle sect." Hearing this, Zhuan frowned and said, "So Xiao Tong has been sent to Song Rinqing?" Hongshan nodded. With that, Zhuan directly put Hongshan into the spirit ring and walked out of the inn. Walking on the street, Zhuan could clearly feel that the atmosphere in Fansha City had become extremely solemn. There was a sense of panic at the slightest sound. Arriving at the city gate of Fansha City, Zhuan found that the city gate had been sealed. There were also heavy guards on both sides of the city gate. This person is really bold. He actually dared to kidnap Hongshan of the Jianghong Trading Company. You have to know that Hongshan's background is not small. She is Wu Han's granddaughter. Suddenly, there was a burst of discussion by the city gate. Zhuan walked over and found that there was a piece of wallpaper pasted on the city wall. On the wallpaper, there was a drawing of his portrait. Fortunately, after Zhuan left the inn, he had changed his appearance. So although many people were talking about him, they didn't recognize him. And from the surrounding discussion, Zhuan could tell that Fansha City had been completely sealed off by the Jianghong Trading Company. If one wanted to enter or leave the city, they had to go through a strict inspection. Once they were found to be of unknown origin, they would be immediately captured by the Jianghong Trading Company. Zhuan frowned. He didn't expect the Jianghong Trading Company to be so ruthless as to seal off the entire Fansha City. Zhuan's shapeless all-life had a very strong concealment effect. It was almost impossible for anyone below the Void Sky Realm to recognize him. Therefore, the only person Zhuan was afraid of was the owner of the Jianghong Trading Company, Wu Han. However, from Hongshan, he found out that Wu Han wasn't in the Fansha Star at the moment. However, he would be back soon. Zhuan planned to settle Xiao Tong and the others' matters before Wu Han returned. Then, he planned to head to the core star region of the Great Brahma Domain. After all, his destination was the Great Brahma Domains Yin, Qing, Yuan, and Quebec. Suddenly, The sound of horse hooves could be heard. At the end of the street, a group of tall horses galloped over. These horses weren't ordinary horses. Each of them was tall, mighty, and spirited. This was a fleet of carriages. The guards inside were all powerful. They were basically at the late heaven god realm and above. There were even a few true gods. The dazzling light trading company is here for business. Please open the door. At the front of the fleet of carriages, a middle-aged man with eyes like torches spoke coldly to the soldiers blocking the city gate. It's actually the dazzling light trading company. The Jianghong Trading Company wouldn't offend the dazzling light trading company just because they sealed off the city. Chapter 1952. Song Renqingzhuowen used his divine sense to check the convoy and found that the strongest person in the convoy was only a true god to disasters. Judging from his aura, he should be similar to Hao Tianyun, who had chased after him. As for the guards at the city gate, although they were heavily guarded, they were not very strong. There was only a true god one disaster standing guard. It was impossible for there to be stronger cultivators in the surroundings. After all, this was just the city gate. Thinking of this, Zhuan revealed a determined look. Then, his divine sense began to quietly spread out and enveloped the surroundings. All life has no form, all things have a beginning. A low voice slowly sounded. Suddenly, the area within 1,000 meters of the city gate was enveloped by Zhuan's divine sense. Then, a huge illusion appeared. In an instant, the surrounding cultivators all looked absent-minded. Even the true god two disasters at the front of the convoy could not help but look absent-minded. At this moment, Zhuan threw the spirit ring in his hand into the nearest carriage that was transporting living things. Then he activated a technique and entered the spirit ring space. The illusion disappeared. Many of the surrounding cultivators looked confused. Just now, they seemed to be dizzy. They all held their foreheads and felt a little strange and surprised. The cold middle-aged man at the front of the convoy frowned slightly. He was actually absent-minded just now. At his level of cultivation, it was rare for him to be absent-minded. However, he had just experienced such a situation. Although he was puzzled, the middle-aged man did not feel anything wrong and did not pay too much attention to it. The true god one disaster in charge of the city gate walked out. He sized up the middle-aged man and said in a deep voice, "Since it is the dazzling light trading company, we should not obstruct you. However, you also know about our Jianghong Trading Company. Let us search your convoy. When the time comes, we will naturally let you go." "Who do you think you are?" The middle-aged man snorted coldly. His right palm suddenly blasted out. Powerful star god power roared and slammed heavily on the true god one disaster. The true god one disaster spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated dozens of steps. He stared gloomily at the middle-aged man and said, "Isn't your dazzling light trading company too arrogant? I advise your Jianghong Trading Company not to provoke our dazzling light trading company. Our trading company's master, Lord Luo Pengfei, has already ascended the void sky twice. He's not someone your Jianghong Trading Company's Wuhan can compare to." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone in the surroundings was shocked. Everyone knew that the cultivations of the three great trading companies were on par with each other, and all of them were at the 10,000 longevity stage. They never expected that the dazzling light trading company's Luo Pengfei had actually broken through. It looked like the tripartite balance of power of the three great trading companies would be tilted to one side. Just as the true god was about to speak, a gray-robed old man arrived at the city gates. He glanced indifferently at the middle-aged man and said, "Open the gates and let them out." This was the gray-robed elder who had followed Sequoia to hunt down Zhuan. Hearing this, the one disaster true god did not dare to speak nonsense and hurriedly opened the city gate. The middle-aged man rode on a large horse and cupped his hands together towards the gray-robed old man from a distance. He shouted and led the convoy out of the city with a whistle. The gray-robed old man silently looked at the departing convoy, his eyes full of gloominess. Although the middle-aged man was also a true god of two disasters, his strength was definitely not as strong as the gray-robed old man. The reason why the middle-aged man was so arrogant was mainly because Luo Pengfei of the dazzling light trading company had successfully ascended the void sky twice. In addition, Wu Han of the Jianghong Trading Company was not in the Fansha star at the moment. Now that the Jianghong Trading Company was weak, the gray-robed old man was so patient. In the spirit ring, Zhuowen's soul consciousness slowly emerged. When he found that the convoy was already far away from the Fansha city, he heaved a sigh of relief. Although his cultivation was not high, his soul consciousness was extremely powerful. Especially after being tempered by the starry sky-quenching stone, Zhuowen's soul consciousness was even more powerful. Even a true god of two disasters would find it difficult to detect his soul consciousness. The dazzling light trading company should be going to the Songrin city this time. You can wait for the convoy to arrive at the Songrin city. In front of Jun, Sequoia's beautiful eyes were filled with indifference as she spoke coldly. Sequoia seemed to have accepted her fate. She did not beg Zhuon to let her go. Instead, she looked extremely calm. Zhuon looked at Sequoia indifferently. Then, he closed his eyes and sat down cross-legged. At the same time, he took out a bucket of fire spirit juice and started to absorb it to cultivate. The fire spirit juice contained extremely powerful energy. Moreover, it could increase the chances of advancing to the true god realm. Although it was difficult for Devour to advance to the true god realm with his powerful talent, absorbing the fire spirit juice was still beneficial to him. Sequoia's beautiful eyes moved slightly. She stared at the bucket of fire spirit juice next to Jun. Especially when she saw how extravagant Zhuon was using the fire spirit juice, Sequoia's mouth twitched. The fire spirit juice was extremely precious. Even though Sequoia was the granddaughter of the Jianghong Trading Company, she did not dare to use the fire spirit juice as extravagantly as Zhuon. How much fire spirit juice does this guy have? Sequoia was a little shocked as she thought to herself. 5 days later, the dazzling light trading company's convoy arrived at the Songrin city. Zhuon found out from Sequoia that the dazzling light trading company had come to the Song family to discuss the matter of the black and yellow aura. Therefore, Zhuon did not leave the convoy. He planned to find an opportunity to leave after entering the Song family. Moreover, he also found out from Sequoia that the Song family did not have any void sky experts. Since there weren't any void sky experts, Zhuowen wasn't afraid. His all-life formless had already been cultivated to the final stage of mastery. If he deliberately concealed himself, cultivators below the void sky realm wouldn't be able to detect him. Zhuowen's divine sense discovered that the Song family's master had personally come out to welcome the middle-aged man. Moreover, he had invited all the true gods of the dazzling light trading company to enter the Song family. As for the goods of the dazzling light trading company, the Song family's master had arranged for several people to unload them. After the goods in Zhuowen's spiritual ring were placed in an empty warehouse, Yun came out of the spiritual ring. Beside him was the enchanting Sequoia. Do you really know where Xiao Tong and the others are being held by the Song family? Zhuon asked with a frown. Sequoia chuckled and said, Of course. The Song family does not only cooperate with the dazzling light trading company. They also have dealings with the other 2 trading companies. When I was transporting goods, I also came to the Song family. I know the Song family better than you do. After saying this, Sequoia moved closer to Zhuowen and said with a charming smile, Didn't you seal my divine power? Are you afraid that I will run away? However, you have to be responsible for me. My strength is not present, so you have to protect me well. Lead the way. Zhuon stretched out his right hand and grabbed Sequoia's slender waist. After saying this, he quietly left this place. While the Song family's master was discussing matters with the people of the dazzling light trading company, a young man was holding a charming woman by the waist and shuttling back and forth within the Song family. Strangely, the patrolling guards of the Song family did not notice this strange man and woman at all. Your concealment technique is really powerful. Even a true god can't find you. Sequoia very naturally hooked her hands around Zhuowen's neck and put her beautiful face next to Zhuowen's ear, breathing hot air. However, just as Sequoia finished speaking, Zhuowen's right hand suddenly loosened. Sequoia let out a low cry and almost fell to the ground. You bastard! Sequoia's face was red. She coldly stared at Yun, the anger in her eyes even more intense. Yun ignored her and said slowly, "This should be the residence of the Song family's young master. Are you sure Xiao Tong and the others are being held here?" Soon, Sequoia's expression returned to normal. She chuckled and said, "The Song family's young master is famous for being a pervert. The crepe myrtle sect's senior sister Yun Chuyu is unparalleled in beauty. Even I was moved when I saw her." The Song family's young master fell in love at first sight. Then he asked our Jianghong Trading Company to take down the crepe myrtle sect and the others. The price was that they planned to give up 10 feet of black-yellow Oregon. Nodded. His divine sense enveloped the entire residence in front of him and searched inside and out. He did not find Xiao Tong, who he was looking for, in this residence. However, Zhuowen did not lose his patience. Instead, he searched the area again and soon discovered something unusual. "Let's go in," Zhuowen said and led Sequoia into the residence. The two entered an elegant study. Sequoia looked around the study and looked at Zhuowen with her beautiful eyes. She wondered what Zhuowen was going to do. Zhuowen came to the bookshelf and gently turned the incense burner on it. The mechanism behind the bookshelf sounded and revealed a dark passage. Zhuowen's divine sense extended into the passage and reached the end. He found that there was a large basement below. Not only that, but Yun also found many things that made him frown. Because in this basement, there were many torture instruments. Other than torture instruments, there were also many props. Zhuowen saw these props and knew that these props were used to toy with women. In addition, there were more than 10 female corpses hanging in the basement. These female corpses were covered with wounds and looked frightened. They had most likely been tortured horribly when they were alive. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. This Song family's young master was really perverted. He actually took pleasure in torturing women. Zhuowen also found Xiao Tong's figure in a huge iron cell in the basement. Other than Xiao Tong, there were 7 or 8 other women in the cell. What attracted Zhuowen's attention was the woman beside Xiao Tong. This woman was extremely beautiful. She was definitely one of the most beautiful women Zhuowen had ever seen in his life. She was almost the same as Zhuowen's wife, Mu Chenxue. Although Moyan Wushang was also very beautiful, his beauty was mainly reflected in his temperament. However, the woman in front of him was so beautiful that it was suffocating. She was definitely at the level of a calamity. Sequoia, who was beside Zhuowen, was also a rare beauty. However, in front of this woman, she was still inferior. Yun knew that this beautiful woman should be the crepe myrtle sect's senior sister, Yun Chuyu. "What's wrong with you?" Sequoia also noticed the abnormality on his face and could not help but ask. Chapter 1953. Saving someone. A strange look appeared in Hong Shan's eyes. This was the first time she had seen Zhuowen show such an expression. She curled her lips and giggled. "What's there that's not suitable for me to see? I'm going to take a look." With that, Hong Shan took the lead and entered the underground passageway. Zhuowen frowned slightly. Just as he was about to stop her, he discovered that Hong Shan had completely disappeared into the passageway. He had no choice but to follow her. Although Hong Shan seemed to be rather curious about the things below, Zhuowen could still sense that she was extremely vigilant. She was secretly paying attention to the passageway in case there were any traps or mechanisms. When Hong Shan completely entered the underground passageway, she suddenly cried out. However, Zhuowen immediately covered her mouth and nose. The two of them finally arrived in the underground passageway. Hong Shan stared in horror at the dozen or so female corpses that had been hung up in the air. These female corpses had died extremely miserably. They were covered in wounds. It was obvious that they had been tortured terribly when they were alive. It could be said that the torturer was a complete pervert. "Didn't I tell you that the things in this underground passageway aren't suitable for you to see?" Zhuowen said indifferently. Hong Shan's body softened as she gently leaned against Zhuowen's chest. She actually felt strangely at ease when she felt his broad chest. "Song Yan really isn't human. I knew he was lustful, but I never thought he was a pervert." Hong Shan's eyes were filled with anger as she cursed softly. Jun shook his head. With a wave of his sleeve, a ball of fire shot out and burned all the female corpses to ashes. Rather than leaving their corpses in this underground passageway, it would be better for Jun to cremate them so that they could rest in peace. After dealing with the female corpses, Jun walked towards the prison at the front of the underground passageway. Big Brother Zhua. Within the prison, Xiao Tong immediately recognized Juan. She could not help but exclaim in surprise. The beautiful woman sitting beside Xiao Tong, Yun Chu, gently raised her head and carefully stared at the young man before her. During this period of time in the dungeon, she had heard Xiao Tong mention Juan a lot, especially when she heard that Juan had killed Qi Cheng, who was at the peak of the heaven god realm as a late heaven god. She was quite surprised, but she did not feel that it was too impressive. A late heavenly god could also kill a peak heavenly god. After all, her talent in the crepe myrtle sect was top-notch. Her strength far surpassed other heavenly gods of the same level. She had once killed a peak heavenly god. It's very dangerous here. You won't be able to do anything even if you come in. Moreover, this prison was set up by the arcane masters of the Song family. You won't be able to save us. Juan had just arrived in front of the dungeon when Yun Chuyu shook her head and sighed softly. Xiao Tong's beautiful eyes dimmed. Yun Chuyu was right. Their dungeon had restrictions set up by arcane divine masters, and those below the level of true divinity would find it difficult to break through. Moreover, even if they tried to break through by force, Song Yen would probably immediately know. Once they alerted the enemy, they would be surrounded by the people of the Song family. They were still fine, as they had already been captured by Song Yen. However, this would also harm Xiao Tong. Juan smiled slightly and said, "If you don't try, how do you know that I won't be able to save you?" As he spoke, Juan took out the Iron Dew sword with his right hand and condensed his star god energy into it. "Are you crazy? You won't be able to break through this restriction. Instead, you'll attract Song Yan's attention." Yun Chuyu's beautiful face changed slightly, and she could not help but shout at him. Juan completely ignored Yun Chuyu. The person he had come to save this time was Xiao Tong. Although he, Juan, was not a good person, he was not a bad person either. Since Xiao Tong did not expose him after being captured by the Jianghong Trading Company, it could be seen that Xiao Tong clearly distinguished between kindness and hatred. She did not implicate Juan because of this. It was because of Xiao Tong's seemingly insignificant actions that touched Juan's heart. In the world of martial arts, the path of cultivation had always been cold-blooded and selfish. In the face of life and death benefits, many cultivators would throw away some of their good qualities. They would always think of themselves and would not consider others. However, Xiao Tong was different. Therefore, even though Zhuoan knew that Xiao Tong had offended the Jianghong Trading Company, he still acted without hesitation to save her. "Big Brother Zhua." Xiao Tong looked worriedly at Zhuoan, who had swung the Iron Dew sword. Her beautiful eyes were filled with guilt. She was not worried about herself, but she was worried that she would implicate Zhuan. Sometimes the dark moon. Zhuan swung his sword, and a crescent moon rose. The blade of the sword was like a ray of light as it fiercely slammed into the dungeon. Rumble. The surface of the dungeon was overflowing with light, and a terrifying restriction appeared, blocking that terrifying crescent moon. The entire basement shook violently because of this terrifying collision, and the huge mansion above the basement shook even more violently because of it. In the mansion, a man who was lying in the hall and enjoying the clothes of several maids suddenly stood up. His gaze was dark as he said, "Someone broke into the basement." As he spoke, the man slapped away the maid who was serving him and hurriedly rushed to the study. At the same time, several shadows were faintly discernible beside the man. The aura of these shadows was extremely terrifying. They were all true god-level existences. In the meeting hall, the Song family's patriarch, Song Jiahao, was discussing the details of the next transaction with the black-clothed man from the dazzling light trading company when he suddenly felt the ground shake. "Patriarch Song, what's going on?" the black-clothed man asked with a frown. Song Jiahao frowned. His divine sense was extended, and he naturally sensed that the tremor came from his eldest son's mansion. He waved his hand and said, "Brother Tang, there's no need to be surprised. Perhaps it's just my son messing around." The black-clothed man nodded. He had heard a little about the Song family's eldest son. It was said that the Song family's eldest son was extremely talented and his cultivation speed was extremely fast. However, he was extremely lecherous and often kidnapped female cultivators back to his mansion. As for the fate of those female cultivators, the black-clothed man did not need to guess to know that they most likely did not end well. Thinking about how the Song family's eldest son had caused such a big commotion because of women, a trace of disdain flashed across the black-clothed man's eyes. In his opinion, cultivators should prioritize their cultivation. Women were just for fun, and there was no need to specifically spend energy on them. At this moment, in the basement, Yun took a few steps back and stared at the restriction in front of the dungeon with a strange gaze. He did not expect the restriction set up by the Divine Arcana Master to be so strong. "Brother Zhua, hurry up and run. Song Yan should already know that someone has broken the restriction here. If you don't leave now, it'll be too late," Xiao Tong hurriedly said. Yun Chuyu's beautiful eyes frowned slightly. "You're overestimating yourself. You're simply harming others and yourself. However, seeing that you saved Xiao Tong's life, I won't blame you. Hurry up and leave this place and go to the Crepe Myrtle sect. Inform them of what happened between Xiao Tong and me. Our Crepe Myrtle sect's patriarch will definitely not treat you unfairly. It's already too late. Why don't I just break the restriction?" Zhuan laughed loudly. Wielding the Tielu sword, he slashed out again, and a crescent moon rose up once more. This time, the surface of the crescent moon was filled with a dense purple intent. From afar, it looked like a rising purple moon. Slash! Zhuan slashed out again. This time, he added all 5 layers of Dao intent to the sometimes of the dark moon. The power of this purple moon was 5 times stronger than before. Seeing Zhuan's stubbornness, Yun Chuyu was so angry that her face paled. Was this person deaf? Could he not understand her words? The instant the purple moon slashed onto the restriction, a world-shaking tremor spread throughout the entire dungeon. Then, the restriction collapsed in an instant. It broke! Yun Chuyu stared blankly at this scene. She forcefully swallowed the rest of her words back into her stomach. Even Xiao Tong and the other women locked up in the dungeon revealed expressions of disbelief. However, they were quickly filled with joy. Rumble! The purple moon was far too powerful. After breaking through the restriction, it suddenly erupted, forming a powerful energy. If one looked from outside the dungeon, they would be able to see a huge purple moon slowly rise up. As for Song Yan's estate, it had been reduced to dust the moment the purple moon rose up. It had been reduced to ruins. Swish! Song Yan, who was originally rushing to the study, suddenly jumped and dodged the collapsed house. His eyes were spitting fire as he stared at the mansion that had completely turned into ruins. He gnashed his teeth and roared, "Which bastard not only broke into this young master's basement but also destroyed this young master's mansion? Damn it!" Bang! The ruins suddenly broke open, and then a young man rushed out of the ruins with a few figures. "Who are you?" Song Yan stared fixedly at Zhuo Wen, his eyes blazing. However, he quickly calmed down because he saw Xiao Tong, Yun Chuyu, and 7 or 8 other female cultivators that he had imprisoned in the dungeon. He knew very well how powerful the restriction in the dungeon was. It was impossible for anyone below True God to destroy it. However, the young man before him was only a late heavenly god. How had he managed to destroy the restriction? Has this person concealed his cultivation? Song Yan asked softly. Swish, swish, swish. As soon as Song Yan finished speaking, 3 figures shot out from the void behind him. One of them, who was clearly the leader, said in a deep voice, "I can't see any signs of this person concealing his cultivation." "All right, then capture him alive. I want to slowly torture him to death," Song Yan ordered indifferently. The black-clothed man nodded and immediately shot toward Zhuan with 2 other black-clothed men. "What should we do?" Xiao Tong asked in a panic. Yun Chuyu's beautiful eyes flickered. For a moment, she could not make up her mind. Meanwhile, Hong Shan stood where she was with a smile, not worried at all. She had more or less experienced Zhuowen's strength. These three black-clothed men were only true gods. She knew that they were no match for Zhuon. Zhuon waved his sleeve and released the fire beast. He said to Xiao Tong, "Miss Xiao, you guys go up first. I'll meet up with you guys later." After saying that, Zhuowen summoned Xiao Tong, Yun Chuyu and the others onto the huge flame beast. He then gave the huge flame beast an order, and the huge flame beast let out a low roar. It turned into a blur and disappeared from the place. As for Hong Shan, Yun held her slender waist. Without waiting for her to struggle, he sent her into the spirit ring. "You really think you're smart? You clearly have a true god mount, but you actually let the group of women escape first. You're the one who stays behind to court death." "I admire your spirit," Song Yen said with a cold smile. One of the three black-clothed men who were pouncing toward Zhuon immediately changed direction and rushed towards the direction where the fire beast had escaped. Swish! Chapter 1954. Master Dragon unleashed his might. The eyes of the black-clothed man who had been cut in two were filled with shock. Just as he was about to struggle, the Thunderfire sword was extremely fast. It suddenly pierced through the black-clothed man's forehead and completely destroyed his soul. The Thunderfire sword itself was extraordinary. Plus, Xiao He had inherited all of the Thunderfire sword's inheritance, so he was extremely powerful. Plus, the man in black was caught off guard, so he was instantly killed by Xiao He. As expected of Master Long. "The elegance of this sword strike really makes me admire you so much." After the Thunderfire sword killed the man in black, the Blood Immortal was brought out by the Thunderfire sword. At this moment, the Blood Immortal was following the Thunderfire sword with a flattering face. Her face was full of flattery and she was praising things that even Zhuon felt ashamed of. Xiao He sat on the hilt of the sword and waved his little claws. He said arrogantly, "What is this? A mere true god, just a piece of trash. If Master Dragon wanted to attack, do you think he could survive? As for the other two, if you want to die, feel free to find this Lord Dragon. See if this Lord Dragon doesn't kill you." Master Dragon is mighty. His divine power is boundless. He is invincible and undefeatable. Empyrean gods and true gods are all trash. The Blood Immortal yelled at the side. Zhuon stood on the side and rubbed his forehead. He felt a headache coming on as he looked at the two of them. Ever since Xiao He took the Blood Immortal in, the two of them were birds of a feather. They were getting along better and better. It was as if they regretted not having met earlier. Every time the two of them appeared, they would act cool. Zhuon couldn't stand it anymore. The other two black-clothed men who were originally attacking Zhuon all stopped in their tracks. Their eyes were filled with shock as they looked at the Thunderfire sword that had instantly killed their companion. There was a trace of fear in their eyes, but there was even more anger. It was just a mere extreme heavenly divine artifact. How could it be so arrogant? And the blood monster next to the broken sword said a series of flattering words. Even they couldn't stand it anymore. "Kill it." The two black-clothed men instantly came to an agreement and gave up on attacking Zhuon. Instead, they turned to Thunderfire sword and Blood Immortal. Xiao He, who was still acting cool, felt his heart skip a beat when he saw the stance of the two men in black. After all, it was only a top-quality heavenly divine artifact. The reason why it was able to kill that black-clothed man earlier was mainly because it had grasped the timing perfectly. Adding on the fact that it had taken the black-clothed man by surprise, it managed to kill that black-clothed man. If it was a head-on battle, Xiao He would not be able to kill a one-disaster true god so easily. Now that two more powerful true gods had joined forces to deal with it, Xiao He did not dare to accept the challenge. However, although Xiao He wanted to retreat, her aura was not weak at all. Two mere one-disaster real gods, in my eyes, are simply trash. You two trash still need this dragon grandpa to take action? After saying that, Xiao He immediately brought Blood Immortal behind Zhuon and said with perfect articulation, "This man was trained by me. You two trash are not even a match for him. Bring it on." "Motherfucker. This sword is too cheap. I must destroy it." The leader of the black-clothed men was furious. Without saying anything, he flew towards Zhuan. It was obvious that he planned to kill Zhuan and Xiao He together. Seeing the two black-clothed men flying towards him again, Zhuan's gaze became serious and he held the Tielu sword in his right hand tightly. Although Zhuan was in the later stage of the heaven god realm, his power was far beyond his cultivation. The Tielu sword could not keep up with his power. Zhuan even realized that as he continued to use the Tielu sword, there was a crack on the surface of the Tielu sword. It was obvious that the Tielu sword could not withstand his violent energy as he continued to use it. Zhuan sighed softly. After returning from Song Renqing, he was planning to purchase a true god artifact-grade divine sword. Swoosh swoosh. Then, the two black-clothed men flew in front of Zhuan. The two of them split into two directions. They held true god weapons and attacked Zhuan from both sides. The violent divine power turned into a terrifying whirlpool and trapped Zhuan in the middle. It was as though it was going to squeeze Zhuan into a meat patty. Zhuan pointed with his right finger and performed Massacre Acheron Finger. The violent Acheron Finger flowed out. In the depth of the Acheron Finger, there were two huge yellow fingers. The patterns on the surface of the yellow fingers could be seen clearly. It was as though they were real fingers. Zhuan stood on one of the Massacre Acheron Finger. He held the Tielu sword in his hand and slashed out. The sword light was like rain as it fell in front of him. Moreover, the surface of the rain-like sword light was filled with purple intent. It was as though it was purple rain that was falling down. The two black-clothed men had serious gazes. They were in a sorry state when dealing with the purple rain. The two Massacre Acheron Finger landed on their chests. Although the two of them were on guard, they still spat out blood and their faces were pale. Zhuan performed sword-piercing thistles. The thistles formed by sword shadows bound the two retreating men. Then, Zhuan casually walked past the two men. The two sword lights quickly slashed through the two men's eyebrows. The two black-clothed men's divine souls were extinguished. They fell into mid-air and lost their lives. Song Yan's pupils shrank. He stared at Zhuan and immediately retreated. Song Yan was not weak, but he was only a one-calamity true god. Even the three black-clothed men were instantly killed. How could he dare to face Zhuan? You dare to kill our Song family? You have guts. Song Yan shouted as he quietly retreated. He had already secretly informed his father that it wouldn't be long before his father and the experts of the Song family arrived here, and this person was about to become a turtle in a jar. I still dare to kill you. Zhuan stood in place without moving, the corners of his mouth filled with a mocking smile. Song Yan naturally saw the expression on Zhuan's face. He immediately realized that something was wrong. With a whoosh, a black flame enveloped him. You're just trash. I'll destroy you in one move. Within the black flame, Xiao Hei's arrogant voice sounded. By the time the black flame faded, Song Yan had already turned into ashes. Zhuan silently looked at Song Yan, who was already dead. There was no pity in his heart. Song Yan was a scum. It could be seen from the dozen or so female corpses in the basement. Zhuan was sure that Song Yan had killed more than a dozen female cultivators. It was just that most of the female corpses should have been disposed of by Song Yan. Bastard, you dare to kill my son. Die. However, just after Xiao Hei killed Song Yan, the Song family's patriarch, Song Jiahao, and the Song family's upper echelons rushed over and saw this scene. Song Jiahao exploded on the spot and rushed towards the Thunderfire sword. When Xiao Hei saw Song Jiahao's terrifying aura, he was so scared that he hurriedly flew to Zhuan's side and boasted shamelessly, "So what if I kill your son? You better keep your mouth clean. Otherwise, I'll chop you up too." Dragon Master, this seems to be a true god of three disasters. We shouldn't be his match, right? Blood Immortal said fearfully. Damn it. What's a true god of three disasters? This brat, he was trained by me. I don't need to do anything. He can take care of this old thing. Xiao Hei was still boasting shamelessly. Good. You're just a sword spirit of a heavenly god artifact. How dare you be so arrogant? I'll pull out your sword spirit and burn it for 81 days. I'll let you suffer endless pain. I'll let you know the consequences of offending me. Song Jiahao was so angry that his beard was trembling. Just as he was about to ask the other higher-ups of the Song family to attack together and take down Zhuan and Xiao He suddenly shouted, "Old thing, how shameless are you? Look at this brat next to me. He's just a late heavenly god. Look at those old guys next to you. They're all true gods of two disasters." Zhuan naturally knew what Xiao He meant. He said calmly, "Old thing, I'm challenging you, true god of three disasters, as a late heavenly god. I'd like to see how many moves you, true god of three disasters, can take. Of course, if you think that you're not my match, you can ask them to attack together. I won't refuse anyone." The black-clothed man from dazzling light trading firm looked at the boastful man and soared with interest. However, he was secretly shaking his head. The young man was only a late heavenly god. No matter how powerful he was, how could he be Song Jiahao's match? Although he could avoid being besieged by such provocation, he would still die in the end. Song Jiahao naturally knew about Zhuan and Xiao He's motive. However, he didn't care at all. Be it besieging or fighting one-on-one, he would definitely die. In the face of absolute power, your little tricks are nothing but fleeting clouds. Song Jiahao sneered and took out a long saber. The saber was brimming with divine light. It was obviously a high-quality true god weapon. "Old thing, you talk a lot. If you want to fight, then fight. Why are you chattering like a woman?" Xiao He mocked mercilessly. Song Jiahao was furious. He raised his saber and slashed at Zhuan. The saber light spread across like a bridge. At the same time, Song Jiahao's consciousness locked onto Zhuan. The saber light followed Song Jiahao's consciousness and slashed at Zhuan. Feeling Song Jiahao's powerful consciousness, Yuan was stunned and revealed a strange expression. Then, the soul-absorbing divine needle flew out from Zhuowen's glabella. It was extremely fast and stabbed at Song Jiahao's consciousness. It followed Song Jiahao's consciousness and flew towards Song Jiahao's glabella at an extremely fast speed. As the soul-absorbing divine needle had been added with the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand, it had the terrifying power to devour souls. Its power was more than 2 times stronger than before. Song Jiahao only felt a pain in his glabella. He was shocked to find that the power of his soul was being stripped out involuntarily. He was so frightened that he quickly stabilized his soul. But very quickly, a golden streak of light shot towards his glabella at an extremely fast speed. He was caught off guard and hurriedly sealed his soul. He didn't even dare to withdraw the divine sense that had shot out, for fear that the golden streak of light would take advantage of it and enter his soul. And it was also when Song Jiahao was stunned that Yuan had already arrived in front of Song Jiahao silently. At this moment, Yuan directly used the 4 great sword moves, piercing thistles and thorns, first appearance of sword light, sun in the sky, and time of the dark moon. 5th level Dao meaning surged out and dyed the 4 great sword moves purple. Xiao He acted according to the situation. Black flames surrounded him and he slashed at Song Jiahao's waist mercilessly. Chapter 1955. Provoke and escape. Song Jiahao was caught off guard and he was attacked by Zhuowen and Xiao He. Song Jiahao's eyes widened in anger. His originally tightened spirit suddenly loosened as the soul-assimilating divine needle followed Song Jiahao's spirit and rushed into the center of his brows. Almost half of it had sunk in. "Ah!" Song Jiahao screamed. He was true god 3 disasters after all, and his spirit was extremely strong. He immediately blocked the soul-assimilating divine needle. However, the soul-assimilating divine needle was different from before. It was mixed with glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand, a rare and powerful material. Its attack on the spirit was much more terrifying than before. Even though Song Jiahao was true god 3 disasters and his spirit was extremely strong, his spirit was still greatly affected as he was caught off guard. Zhuan also realized that Song Jiahao was struggling to block the soul-assimilating divine needle and he probably couldn't spare any energy to deal with him. However, he also knew that Song Jiahao was different from the other true gods that he had met before. Even though Song Jiahao was just an ordinary true god 3 disasters, it was still difficult for him to fight against such an existence with his current power. Hence, He had to take advantage of this great opportunity to severely injure Song Jiahao. After slashing out 4 sword moves, Zhuowen's heaven-devouring eye split open and released 10 purplish-black lightning instantly. Not only that, he used Massacre Finger of Acheron again. With the purple intent of the level 5 Dao Will, he dyed the Acheron River into a purple river that filled the sky. The purplish-black lightning accompanied the purple river and instantly drowned Song Jiahao. Then, Song Jiahao's groan was heard. Bang! The soul-assimilating divine needle flew backward and was caught by Zhuon. He knew that the soul-assimilating divine needle didn't completely enter Song Jiahao's glabella. However, the soul-assimilating divine needle definitely caused quite a bit of damage to Song Jiahao. Plus, the attack that Zhuowen and Xiao He released together was even more terrifying. Even though Song Jiahao was true God 3 disasters, he probably wouldn't be unscathed after receiving the full power of the two of them. Bang! As the purple river receded, Song Jiahao spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground in a sorry state. His face was pale as he spat out a mouthful of blood. The complexions of the Song family's upper echelons and the black-clothed man from the dazzling light trading company froze. Before they could even react, Song Jiahao had been defeated just like that? Patriarch! The upper echelons of the Song family rushed toward Song Jiahao, who had fallen to the ground, and helped him up. Although Song Jiahao appeared to be in a sorry state, his injuries were not serious. This was because he was wearing an inner armor with astonishing defense. Although Zhuowen's attack was powerful, it was actually weakened by the inner armor. On the other hand, Song Jiahao's divine soul had suffered much more serious injuries than his external injuries. At this moment, Song Jiahao could still feel the chaos in his divine soul space. He knew very well that if the soul-assimilating divine needle really entered his spiritual space, his soul might be annihilated. Who exactly is this kid? Song Jiahao was shocked and angry. He stared at the soul-assimilating divine needle floating around Zhuowen with extreme fear. This thing was too terrifying. Not only could it devour divine sense, it could even affect him through the divine sense. So, old man, didn't you want to kill this dragon lord? Do you want to extract my sword spirit and burn it for 81 days? This dragon lord is right in front of you. Come on. This dragon lord is waiting. Xiao He stood at the sword hilt arrogantly. His posture made him look like he was asking for a beating. Let's go together and kill them. Song Jiahao roared angrily. He no longer cared about his chaotic divine soul. He took a step forward and rushed toward Zhuowen as fast as a shuttle. The 7 or 8 upper echelons of the Song clan followed closely behind him, forming a circle around Zhuowen. This dragon lord is not playing with you anymore. Trash like you is not fun at all. I'll let you go today. Xiao He continued to boast shamelessly. Then, he wrapped around the blood immortal and turned into a black line that shot into the distance. Zhuowen naturally understood. He stepped onto the thunder fire sword and had no intention of staying. Real God 3 disasters was indeed powerful. Zhuowen estimated that he was not his match yet. Hence, he did not want to be entangled with Song Jiahao anymore. Naturally, it was better to leave. However, Zhuowen knew that once his doppelganger reached the peak divine realm, Song Jiahao might not be his match. With the soul-assimilating divine needle's unexpected effect, he might be able to kill Song Jiahao. However, he could not do that now. Zhuowen had used his scheme to gain the upper hand. However, he still could not cause much harm to Song Jiahao. He knew that if he continued to be entangled with Song Jiahao, he would be asking for trouble. You still want to escape? Impossible. Song Jiahao was unable to restrain his anger. That broken sword spirit was truly too despicable. It clearly wanted to escape, yet it actually made the reason sound so dignified. It even insulted him as trash. Song Jiahao was unable to restrain his anger. That broken sword spirit was truly too despicable. He wanted nothing more than to chase after it and tear its mouth apart. Zhuowen felt that Song Jiahao's powerful soul consciousness was firmly locked on him. The distance between them was getting closer. Zhuowen knew how powerful Real God 3 disasters was. Song Jiahao's speed was much faster than the Thunder Fire Sword. Xiao He, enter my inner space. Zhuan said and put the Thunderfire sword and the Blood Immortal into his inner space. Then, his back began to protrude and a pair of huge dragon wings spread out. On the surface of the dragon wings, 9 baby candle dragons were entangled. Boom! The dragon wings flapped and a thunder-like sound was transmitted from the dragon wings. Then, Zhuowen's speed increased by tens or hundreds of times. In an instant, the distance between him and Song Jiahao increased. In the end, Song Jiahao's soul consciousness lost track of him. Song Jiahao stopped and stared blankly at the disappearing figure. Then he roared, "Bastard, don't let me know who you are. Otherwise, I will make you regret it." The black-clothed man from the dazzling light trading firm was not far away. Apart from shock, he was also deep in thought. He knew that the candle dragon wings that Zhuan had released were from the Jiang Hong trading firm's auction. It seemed that the person who had bid for the candle dragon wings and kidnapped Sequoia was this person. This person, the black-clothed man, seemed to have thought of something and his face turned ugly. He knew why this person had appeared here. He was probably following the dazzling light trading firm's fleet. In a desolate desert, the giant flaming beast quietly landed. Its huge body shook, shaking off the several women on its body. The giant flaming beast was originally a wild and untamed exotic beast. The reason it was tamed by Zhuan was because of Devour's powerful pressure. It hated other cultivators. Yun Chuyu and Xiao Tong gently landed on the ground. The other women were in a sorry state. Their cultivations were lower than Yun Chuyu and Xiao Tong's. "I wonder how Big Brother Zhua is doing?" Xiao Tong asked worriedly. Yun Chuyu shook her head and said, "Junior sister, I think that Zhuan is doomed. However, he was actually able to take out a true god-level exotic beast to help us escape. He is a man with a true temperament." Xiao Tong's face reddened and she hurriedly said, "Senior sister, Big Brother Zhua and I are not like what you think. We have only known each other for a short time. Moreover, Big Brother Zhua saved me twice. Now he has saved me again. I owe him 3 lives." Yun Chuyu seemed to be saying something when a rainbow suddenly swept across the sky. When the rainbow appeared, the giant flaming beast was extremely excited. It came to the rainbow's side and automatically lowered its body. "It's Big Brother Zhua." Xiao Tong's face was filled with surprise, while Yun Chuyu revealed a look of surprise. The 3 people beside Song Yen were all first calamity true gods, especially the black-clothed leader. He was most likely a powerful true god who had survived at least 2 thunder calamities. Yun Chuyu did not believe that Zhuowen would be able to escape from the combined forces of the 3 true gods. "How did you escape from the hands of these 3 true gods?" Yun Chuyu also moved forward and asked in surprise. Zhuan smiled and said, "My speed was relatively fast. I was lucky enough to escape." Hearing this, Yun Chuyu frowned. She was clearly not satisfied with Zhuowen's explanation. However, she could do nothing about it. After all, this was Zhuowen's secret. She had no right to ask. "Benefactor, thank you for saving our lives." The other female cultivators all moved closer to Zhuan. Their expressions were filled with excitement. In the basement, they were terrified, especially when they saw Song Yen torture the dozen or so female cultivators to death. It almost drove them crazy. In the end, they were still rescued by Zhuan. They were extremely grateful to Zhuan. "It's okay. I can't stand that scum Song Yen. It's only right that I save you." Zhuan smiled. The 2 women expressed their gratitude again, then bid farewell to Zhuan and left. "Why don't the 2 of you leave?" Zhuan looked at Xiao Tong and Yun Chuyu and asked. Xiao Tong shook her head and said, "Brother Zhua, you've helped me too many times. I can't just leave like this. Come with me to the Crepe Myrtle sect." The Crepe Myrtle sect clearly distinguishes between kindness and hatred. "We will definitely repay you." Zhuan was stunned. He did not expect Xiao Tong, this little girl, to be so grateful. "There's no need. You should leave first. I still have some matters to attend to at the Song family. Also, Brahma Fiend City is sealed. It won't be easy for you to return to Brahma Fiend City now." Zhuowen reminded. "What? Brahma Fiend City is sealed? The transporter is in Brahma Fiend City. If we can't enter Brahma Fiend City, we won't be able to return to the Crepe Myrtle sect. Yun Chuyu said with some worry. Juan glanced at Yun Chuyu. This woman was indeed beautiful. Even with a frown, she exuded a myriad of emotions. It was no wonder that Song Yen was so determined to obtain this woman. Brother Zhua, this is my contact jade token. After you're done with your matters, can you contact us? You've saved me too many times. I want to repay you. Xiao Tong stuffed a jade token into Zhuowen's hand. Zhuowen accepted the jade token without batting an eyelid. Immediately, he turned into a long rainbow and left the place. This time, he came to the Song family of Rinsong City. Saving Xiao Tong was one of his goals. However, his other goal was the Song family's mysterious yellow or vein. Chapter 1956. Seizing the Xianhuang or vein. When Zhuowen arrived at the Song family again, he immediately used the formless world to sneak into the Song family. At this moment, the entire Song Rinxing was in a state of panic. Although the security of the Song family was even tighter, Zhuowen realized that there were not many experts left in the Song family. The death of the young master of the Song family, Song Yen, was not a small matter. After Zhuowen left, Song Jiahao immediately led many cultivators out of the Song Rinxing to search for Zhuowen. This was also the reason why the number of experts in the Song family had decreased drastically. Great, this also gives me a chance to seize the Xianhuang or vein. Zhuowen did not expect Song Jiahao to bring all the experts of the Song family away. He was relieved. With most of the experts of the Song family gone, there would be less obstacles for him to seize the Xianhuang or vein. Yun summoned Hong Shan from his spirit ring and said, "Bring me to the Xianhuang or vein." Hong Shan frowned and said seriously, "I'm afraid it won't be easy. The Xianhuang or vein has always been guarded by the Song family's arcane masters. The formations there are complicated and the restrictions are terrifying. Unless you have the permission of the Song family's higher-ups, you won't be able to break in." "Then I'll force my way in," Zhuowen said calmly. "Did you not understand what I said?" Hong Shan could not help but yell. Zhuowen grabbed Sequoia's hand and said, "You're an arcane master yourself, aren't you? Although your disguise is very good, your seduction art is not just a seduction art. It is a seduction art that uses restrictions. You can fool others, but you can't fool me." Hong Shan stared at Zhuowen with her beautiful eyes. She was indeed an arcane master. In the Jianghong trading firm, there were only a few people who knew that. Only the higher-ups of the Jianghong trading firm knew that. Seeing the shock on Hong Shan's face, Zhuowen knew that he had guessed correctly. Although he was also an arcanist, his cultivation level was just too low. He was only a heavenly saint master. He had sensed something when Sequoia had used her charm technique many times before, but he was uncertain. Seeing Zhuowen's expression, Hong Shan knew that she had been tricked. She looked a little annoyed, but she quickly recovered and said, "Hyun, since you want to snatch the black-yellow mineral vein, how should we divide it? I'll take 80% and you'll take 20%. In addition, I won't restrain you and set you free," Zhuowen said calmly. Hong Shan was stunned for a moment before she nodded and said, "Deal. Release the shackles on my body. I'll take you to the black-yellow or vein." Zhuowen looked deeply at Sequoia and released the shackles. At the same time, Yun was also on guard against Sequoia. After knowing that Sequoia was an arcane master, Yun knew that she wasn't simple. If not for the fact that Sequoia was defenseless against him, Yun wouldn't have been able to imprison her so easily. "Let's go." After releasing the shackles, Sequoia calmly turned into a fiery red shadow and shot toward the back of the Song family. Yun followed closely behind her. The back mountain of the Song family was heavily guarded. The surface of the mountain was filled with colorful lights. Clearly, there was an extremely powerful restriction in the mountain. The two figures quickly passed through the heavily guarded checkpoint and arrived at the mountain pass. "I need some time to break the formation. Protect me," Sequoia said as she took out the formation flags and began to deduce how to break the formation. Zhuowen naturally didn't dare to disturb Sequoia. Instead, he used all life formless and completely concealed their auras. Sequoia's movements were skillful. She held the formation flags in her hand and they revolved around her with great familiarity. Under Sequoia's control, the restriction in front of them loosened. It was clear that Sequoia's method of breaking the formation was effective. This entrance can only last for an hour. After we enter, we have to take away the Xianhuang mine within that hour. If we can't, we have to leave within that hour. Otherwise, we'll be discovered by the arcane god master here, said the arcane god master. Sequoia's expression was extremely serious as she continued. Once discovered, the arcane master will definitely activate the formation here. This formation isn't like the one in Song Yan's basement. It should be the arcane master's painstaking work. Once activated, even the 3 disasters' true gods might be trapped in this formation. Zhuan nodded and didn't say anything else. He followed Sequoia into the formation. As soon as they entered the formation, Zhuan's powerful consciousness scanned the entire mountain like a radar. After being tempered by the universe-quenching stone, his consciousness penetrative power was much stronger than other cultivators. The entire mountain was like nothing to him. It's over there. Zhuan's eyes narrowed as he took the lead. Sequoia was still searching with her consciousness. Seeing Zhuan suddenly rush out, she had no choice but to follow. When they reached the center of the mountain, Zhuan punched out and created a huge hole. Then, dense Xianhuang qi surged out, causing Zhuan to be pleasantly surprised. After summoning the Thunderfire Sword, Zhuan immediately had Xiaohei do the hard work of drilling into the mountain. Although Xiaohei was cursing and was extremely unwilling, her body was very obedient. She continued to dive into the depths of the mountain according to Zhuan's instructions. When they reached the deepest part of the mountain, Zhuan and Sequoia were both stunned. Then their eyes lit up. Because their divine consciousness had thoroughly explored the mysterious yellow mineral vein. There were 2 mineral veins, one was tens of thousands of feet long, and the other was tens of thousands of feet long. Zhuan didn't hesitate to choose the 10,000 feet long vein. He said to Sequoia, "According to our agreement, I want this 10,000 feet long vein. You can go and take the 10,000 feet long vein." After saying that, Zhuan pounced towards the 10,000 feet tall mineral vein without any further explanation. Although Sequoia was a little unwilling, they had already made an agreement. Moreover, time was of the essence, so she didn't say anything and went toward the 10,000 feet long vein. The dense Xianhuang qi made Zhuan feel relaxed and happy. He looked at Sequoia from the corner of his eyes and found that she wasn't paying attention to him. With a wave of his sleeve, a deep black hole appeared. The black hole had a terrifying suction force. The 10,000 feet long vein was instantly sucked into Zhuan's body. On the other side, Sequoia summoned the array flag. Her hands formed a complicated seal, and a sealing force spread to the 10,000 feet long vein. She planned to seal the 10,000 feet long vein and put it into her spirit ring. After putting away the vein, Zhuan suddenly noticed that there was a strange force emerging from the bottom of the mountain. Zhuan was very familiar with this force. It was the star power of a planet. Does this Xianhuang vein lead to the deep underground of the Brahma Fiend star? Zhuan narrowed his eyes. There was no doubt that this Brahma Fiend star had an owner. Normally, the star power of a planet with an owner couldn't be absorbed by a heavenly god. However, Zhuan was different. His Devour clone had a powerful devouring ability. It could even devour a planet, let alone the star power of a planet with an owner. The reason why Devour needed to devour a planet was to devour the star power of the planet. However, the planet was just suffering from an unexpected disaster. Devouring a planet was an arrogant act, and it would be hard to avoid being discovered. After taking over Devour's body, Zhuan had considered this situation. He was a human, not Devour. Normally, there would be mortals living in a planet with life. Thus, he couldn't devour a planet to obtain star power. If there was a way to obtain star power without devouring planets, it would definitely be the best of both worlds for Zhuan. I don't need to devour a planet. If I go deep into the planet, I can use Devour's devouring power to devour a part of the star power of the planet. It won't affect the mortals on the planet, and my Devour clone won't be discovered. The more Zhuan thought about it, the brighter his eyes became. Eventually, he punched the ground. Since this place led to the deep underground of the Brahma Fiend star, He wanted to see if he could absorb the star power of this planet. Moreover, Yuan had a feeling that the Brahma-fiend star wasn't simple. The star power of this planet was much more abundant than the other life planets. If he absorbed the star power of this planet, perhaps he could reach the peak of heavenly god realm. Yuan controlled the thunder flame sword to go deeper into the ground. What are you doing? At this moment, Hong Shan had retrieved the 1000-jiang mineral vein. When she saw Zhuowen going deeper into the ground, she couldn't help but ask him in a low voice. Zhuowen turned around to look at Hong Shan and said in a low voice, "Miss Hong Shan, let's make a deal. Today, I have something to do in the depths of this place. You can leave on your own. However, before you leave, you have to erase the traces of me going deep into the ground. How about that? I know you want the fire spirit juice and the black-yellow mineral vein. I'll give you another 3000-jiang mineral vein and a barrel of fire spirit juice as a reward. How about that?" Hong Shan was bewildered. Inwardly, she was shocked by Zhuowen's wealth. After pondering for a while, she said, "I'll do this deal." Nodding, Yuan took out the 3000-jiang mineral vein and a barrel of fire spirit juice and gave them to Hong Shan. Then he urged the thunder flame sword to go deeper. After a period of contact, Yuan could see that Hong Shan was a trustworthy person. She wouldn't take the things without doing anything. Of course, even if Hong Shan reneged on the deal, after Yuan advanced to the peak heavenly god realm, he would directly barge into the Jiang Hong Trading Company and let Hong Shan suffer his wrath. After putting away the black-yellow mineral vein and fire spirit juice, Hong Shan looked at the figure going deep into the ground. After hesitating for a while, she finally took out the array flag and erased all traces of Zhuowen going deep into the ground. Hong Shan always felt that Yuan was very mysterious. Moreover, his strength was a little abnormally strong. After thinking for a long time, she finally decided not to provoke Zhuowen. After erasing all traces, Hong Shan left the back mountain. She took out a flying ship, a true god weapon, and quickly left Songren City. Not good. Someone touched the black-yellow mineral vein. Not long after Hong Shan left, Song Jiahao, who was originally searching for Zhuowen outside, was notified by the arcane god master of the Song family. He hurriedly returned to the Song family. Not long after Song Jiahao entered the back mountain, he came out again. However, his face was very ugly and even a little pale. The black-yellow mineral vein that the Song family controlled had been completely dug out. Not a single bit was left. This was the foundation of the Song family. It was silently taken away just like that. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.